A memory of a frown, a hidden level, and the echo of a deadly sound wave. A woman's heart in turmoil, a choice made long ago, now stirring in the dark. To hear the verdict of that choice, to witness the opening, you must become the gatekeeper. Chapter 251. Chapter 251, Hidden Level. Fukohan frowned slightly. Why is Jiang Fan so confident in his own comprehension? This question only lingered in his mind for a moment. Then he threw it to the back of his mind. As for comprehension, he was the absolute ruler of the nine-sect land. No one could surpass him. He took out a bamboo slip on which were engraved extremely complex musical notes. This is a treasured music score of the heavenly sound sect. On the surface, it looks like an ordinary music score, but in fact, it is a profound-level high-grade sound path technique. It is incredibly difficult to comprehend. Even our sect master has not fully understood it in over 10 years. You and I shall comprehend this fragment together. Jiang Fan frowned slightly. Music score cultivation technique? It was his first time seeing such a thing. He couldn't help but look curiously. Under his powerful comprehension, although he had never encountered a music score before, the notes seemed to move on their own in his vision. They transformed into humanoid patterns, and as many notes connected, they formed a series of movement diagrams. This was similar to what he had seen in the Undying medical book. Very soon, he clearly saw some words formed by the changing notes. Tiger and Dragon Roar Technique, Jiang Fan murmured, saying the name of the technique. Unexpectedly, it elicited a strange look from Fukohan. Don't you recognize the words? Didn't you see the three big characters, array-breaking song? He pointed at the title on the leftmost side of the music score. Gong Kei also showed a puzzled expression. Jiang Fan, did your eyes deceive you? I can see the name of the music score even from this distance. Yuan Jiu's face also showed suspicion. What Tiger and Dragon Roar? What are you talking about? Are those words even on there? Ming Yulian scoffed. You don't even recognize the characters, yet you have the nerve to compare your comprehension. Jiang Fan was stunned. Could it be that they didn't see the notes moving on their own? Wait. Jiang Fan came to his senses. Could it be like the Undying medical book? Others only saw the surface, while his superior comprehension allowed him to see the essence of the technique. Thinking of this, he looked at the introduction again. Tiger and Dragon Roar Technique, Sound Path Technique, Earth Level Medium Grade. Earth Level Medium Grade. Jiang Fan's heart pounded wildly. He tried looking several times to confirm he was not mistaken. This music score, which the Heavenly Sound sect misidentified as a profound-level high-grade sound path technique, was actually an Earth-level medium-grade supreme secret technique. He couldn't help but feel dry-mouthed. Since he started on the martial path, this was the strongest technique he had ever seen. Do you want to compete or not? Looking at Jiang Fan's odd expression, Fukohan closed the bamboo slip and asked with a frown. The people around exchanged glances and frowned in turn. Gong Kei reminded. Jiang Fan, music scores are different from ordinary cultivation techniques. They are difficult to comprehend. Moreover, it is unknown how long Fukohan has been comprehending this technique. He may have already fully comprehended it. It would be better if our sect provided a cultivation technique for you two to comprehend together. Yuan Jiu nodded vigorously. The sect master is right. It's unfair for a disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect to comprehend a Heavenly Sound sect technique. Jiang Fan wanted to shut them up. This was a divinely provided opportunity to learn an Earth-level medium-grade technique for free. If you block it, I won't let you off. He waved his hand and pretended to be relaxed. No problem. If they're not afraid of others learning the Heavenly Sound sect's ultimate technique, why should I be afraid? Upon hearing this, Ming Yulian scoffed. You overestimate yourself? If you can understand the first page, you would be a prodigy. And you think you can learn our sect's ultimate technique? Unlike other sects, the Heavenly Sound sect required its disciples to have both spirit roots and an innate talent for the sound path. This array-breaking map, known for its difficulty, was challenging even for members of the Heavenly Sound sect to comprehend. Fukohan had only barely comprehended the second page. Jiang Fan, an outer sect disciple, thought he could master it. What a joke, Fukohan chuckled. If you have the ability, then learn it. I won't be heartbroken. This was what you said. Jiang Fan silently prepared himself, eager to start. Seeing that Jiang Fan had no objections, Gong Kei couldn't say anything more. She nodded. Is this a Zither score? You must play the Zither to unleash the power of the technique. Jiu, bring my 7-stringed Zither. Very soon, Yuan Jiu brought out an ancient-looking Zither. It had not been deliberately crafted, but because its materials were so fine, it had naturally become a lower-grade magic artifact. "Take it and use it," Gong Kei said. Yuan Jiu then handed it to Jiang Fan. Fukohan felt jealousy. Although he carried a Zither with him that was much higher in grade than Gong Kei's, Gong Kei only cared about Jiang Fan and ignored him, making him very uncomfortable. It made him even more determined to severely teach Jiang Fan a lesson. He took out his own Zither and sat opposite Jiang Fan in the grand hall. The array-breaking map was spread out and placed in the center of the hall. So both could see, Gong Kei said, 2-hour time limit. "Let's start." Fukohan slowly focused on the third page. Having already comprehended the first 2 pages, he had an absolute lead. He even thought that even if he didn't continue to comprehend it, Jiang Fan would never catch up to him. With his astonishing comprehension, it took him 2 months to barely understand the first 2 pages. In these 2 hours, Jiang Fan would likely struggle to understand even 1 line of text. But when he looked at Jiang Fan, he thought Jiang Fan would be very nervous, but unexpectedly, Jiang Fan seemed more relaxed than himself. He hadn't immediately started comprehending. Instead, he looked through the entire score carefully from beginning to end. Pretending to be calm, Fukohan shook his head. He couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Jiang Fan and focused on his own comprehension. Little did he know, Jiang Fan was memorizing the content, so that after the 2-hour period, he wouldn't miss the chance to touch this Earth-level medium-grade technique again. After a short tea break, he closed his eyes and confirmed he had memorized everything before he started comprehending. Images of musical notes dancing appeared in his mind. He slowly began to gain a faint understanding. 2 hours, to the onlookers, it was undoubtedly long and boring, but to Jiang Fan, who was engrossed in it, it seemed like the blink of an eye. "Time's up." Gong Kei's reminder brought Jiang Fan back to reality. He was still in the mood for more. As it was his first experience with a sound path technique, he found it quite intriguing, and the gains were substantial. This tiger and dragon roar technique was divided into 3 layers. He had already successfully comprehended the first layer, reaching the tiger roar realm. When playing the Zither, it would demonstrate incredible power. It would be his most powerful strike besides the purple sword. Fukohan slowly opened his eyes, a gleam of comprehension in them. Ming Yulian, who was nearby, eagerly asked, "How did it go?" Fukohan smiled slightly. "I performed exceptionally. I have comprehended the 3rd page." Ming Yulian was overjoyed. "In just 2 months, you've comprehended 3 pages. You indeed are a prodigy of our sect, not seen in 100 years. Give you 10 years, and you will surely comprehend the entire technique." Though the others didn't know how difficult it was to comprehend this technique, from the almost out-of-character reaction of Ming Yulian, they could tell Fukohan had made significant progress. They couldn't help but look worriedly at the calm-faced Jiang Fan. Fukohan also smiled mockingly at Jiang Fan and said, "Do you still have the courage to compete with me?" Chapter 252. Chapter 252. Stay back. In fact, even if Jiang Fan backed down, he wouldn't allow it. Why was he lowering himself to compete with a waste spirit root? Was it not to crush his spirit? Was it not to show Gong Kei how mediocre her favored person was? When it was time for results, did he want to run? Dream on. Jiang Fan touched his nose and said, "I suggest you take the initiative to give up." Learning someone else's Earth-level middle-grade cultivation technique and then using it to win against them. It's somewhat bullying. But to others, these words sounded like retreating. Ming Yulian couldn't help but laugh and said to Gong Kei, "Sect Master Gong, you just said that our heavenly sound sect was bringing humiliation upon itself. I have never understood. I understand now. Our heavenly sound sect's esteemed chief disciple, comparing with a coward who talks tough but flinches at the last moment. It is indeed insulting to one's status." Yuan Jiu wanted to defend Jiang Fan. If Jiang Fan had given up initially, she could have questioned the fairness of the competition and excused him. But now, after 2 hours of enlightenment, retreating at this moment was indefensible. The people outside the hall were also a bit puzzled. Why did Jiang Fan just now think of giving up? Too late, isn't it? Fukohan sneered inwardly, really wanting to quit now. Having spoken harshly at the moment of confrontation, "Do you want to run?" He gave a gentle smile. "Junior brother Jiang, it's just a common exchange. Winning or losing is not important. Why care so much? Do your best. Whatever you comprehend is fine. I won't laugh at you." Jiang Fan plucked the Zither strings and pondered, "You should go first." He wanted to see the difference between Fukohan's display and his. The same musical score technique, though there may be differences, shouldn't be too large. No problem. Fukohan agreed readily. He sneered inwardly. Now Jiang Fan could only delay. But under so many eyes, could he delay this difficulty? He then sat cross-legged, placed the ancient Zither on his knees, calmed his mind, and regulated his state. His whole being quickly became tranquil, like a pond caressed by the spring breeze without ripples. But in the next moment, strum, as his fingers swiftly swept over the zither strings, two intense and sharp sounds, like cold knives drawn in the dark night, pierced the soul. The unprepared crowd had their hearts skip a beat. Then the zither sound grew increasingly rapid. An overwhelming sensation, like warhorse iron hooves trampling icy rivers, rushed towards them. As the zither sounds reached their peak, the sound suddenly shifted. The low thumping and humming zither sounds, like clashing knives and swords. The multitude seemed to see in front of their eyes billowing smoke, thousands of troops wielding war knives, fighting bloodily on vast plains. Amidst the grandeur and fury, listeners became intensely emotional. They felt as if they were in the scene, thud, but at this moment. Fukohan pressed down on the zither strings with his 5 fingers. The myriad sounds of the world ceased, and the many scenes vanished instantly. Yuan Jiu snapped back to reality, her breath still rapid. After a few deep breaths, she calmed down slightly. Feeling a breeze, she found her back soaked with sweat. Such profound zither sounds, completely guiding my emotions. She felt a pang of fear. If in battle, hearing such zither sounds, could she still maintain a calm state to face the enemy? However, what she feared even more, her pupils contracted as she discovered the hall's perfectly smooth granite floor. Sometime during the performance, faint scratches had appeared. These are, she covered her red lips in shock. Gong Kei nodded slightly, approvingly. Indeed, a prodigy of the heavenly sound sect. The zither sound turns into swords, harming without form. Among the elders in the heavenly sound sect, few can achieve this. Although she didn't quite like this person, she couldn't deny the other's proud talent in music, surpassing the 9th sect. Xianxia and others outside the hall were also deeply shocked. Especially as they stared at those zither sound-carved scratches, they were even more astonished. If Fukohan were their enemy, they would likely have been cut to pieces by the zither's sound long ago. Chu Xingmeng took a deep breath, deeply worried. Senior brother Jiang will have a hard time winning. Qin Ke sighed slightly. This time, junior brother Jiang indeed underestimated Fukohan. To become a legendary prodigy, how could he lack genuine skills? Such astonishing attainment had already impressed everyone present. No longer held out any hope for Jiang Fan. Ming Yulian proudly said, "Sect Master Gong, you underestimated Chaohun. This array-breaking map, only he has currently displayed such power. Even the Sect Master does not reach half his level." Really, Gong Kei couldn't help but feel unsettled. Could Jiang Fan win? Although she highly regarded Jiang Fan's comprehension, Fukohan was truly no simple character. Especially his array-breaking map attainment, already the first among the 9th sect. No matter how genius Jiang Fan's comprehension, could he surpass it? She comforted, "Jiang Fan, just do your best. It is your first time encountering a sound path technique, and the first you face is the renowned, difficult array-breaking map. Even if you fall short of Fukohan, it is not embarrassing." Before starting, she was already giving Jiang Fan a way out. This showed she really had no confidence in him anymore. Fukohan smiled secretly. "Weren't you fond of Jiang Fan? Weren't you saying I brought about my own humiliation? Why are you now finding reasons for his failure?" Unfortunately, mediocrity is mediocrity. No excuse would help. He held the ancient zither confidently. "Junior brother Jiang, just do your best. As Sect Master Gong said, losing to me is quite normal." Jiang Fan nodded slowly. He recognized the power of Fukohan's array-breaking map. Just he didn't know how the technique he comprehended from the array-breaking map would compare in power. "All right, I'll start." Jiang Fan placed the 7-stringed zither across his knees and reminded, "Please distance yourselves from me to avoid accidents." Yuan Jiu was puzzled. Accidents? Just playing the zither, even at Fukohan's level, it would be difficult to harm the people present, right? But she still obediently distanced herself from Jiang Fan, moving to Gong Kei's side. Whispering, "Master, what does junior brother Jiang mean?" Gong Kei couldn't figure out what he was up to either, pondering, "Let's watch and see." Ming Yulian chuckled, "Are you worried that your zither sounds might injure people? Rest assured you don't have that skill." Fukohan also dismissed it, maintained his stance opposite Jiang Fan, and said with a smile, "If you can hurt me, it will be a testament to your abilities." "I won't blame you." Start your performance? All right, the opponent had said this. Jiang Fan no longer held back. He activated his spiritual power and began to play the array-breaking map. Different from the musical score Fukohan saw, what Jiang Fan comprehended was the score for the tiger and dragon roar technique. So, as soon as he pressed the strings, it was not the iron horse-ice river oppression, but rather a fierce tiger suddenly roaring next to the ear, causing a scalp-tingling sensation, including Gong Kei. Everyone without exception unprepared for it shuddered, their hearts pounded wildly. Chapter 253. Chapter 253. Is this the same sheet music? Chapter 253. Chapter 253. Is this the same sheet music? But this was just the beginning, as Jiang Fan's 10 fingers moved swiftly, plucking the zither strings. High-pitched notes pierced the air, sending shivers down spines. It was as if a fierce tiger was treading on dry twigs in the deep, dark forest, approaching slowly from the shadows. Everyone's hearts tightened and they dared not breathe. It truly felt like a scene of being in a dire situation. Next, Jiang Fan's spiritual power surged, causing the zither notes to burst forth suddenly. It was like a tiger pouncing, roaring fiercely. Moreover, now distant and now near, sometimes high and sometimes low. It seemed as if tigers surrounded them from all sides. A sense of being attacked by 100 tigers came looming. Yuan Zhiyu's figure wavered, involuntarily moving closer to Gong Kei. But Gong Kei also felt as if she were in the midst of it, instinctively standing on tiptoe, her whole body tensed. As the sound grew more intense, the oppressive feeling gradually reached its peak. Finally, a resounding explosive sound echoed inside and outside the great hall. In a daze, people saw. A ferocious tiger leaped out of the ancient zither, bearing its bloody fangs, pouncing towards them with a fierce bite. At the same time, centered on Jiang Fan, the granite floor under the deafening zither sound exploded in a fan-shaped pattern, directly facing Fukohan and Ming Yulian. With a bang, Fukohan, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, was blasted away on the spot. Ming Yulian stumbled and almost fell. Her face changed drastically as she grabbed Fukohan and retreated rapidly. The zither sound did not diminish. It spread all the way out, exploding the ground along its path, when the impact reached the central stone pillar of the great hall. With a crack, the huge stone beam, which required 3 people to embrace, was actually cracked and began to tilt. With the stone beam destroyed, the great hall shook violently. It seemed it was going to collapse. Gong Kei was startled. A pat on the table, she leaped over, swiftly arriving in front of the stone beam. With one palm, she supported the tilting stone beam back to its position. Thus, the great hall was spared from collapsing. When the zither sound dissipated, everyone was stunned into silence by the scene inside the hall. A huge fan-shaped area of granite was completely shattered and uplifted. White smoke hissed from the ground. Dust filled the entire hall. It was as if a violent earthquake had occurred. Sights were shocking. Yuan Zhiyu clung to the table, barely steadying herself, eyes wide open in astonishment at the scene of destruction. At this moment, she even forgot to breathe, mumbling in disbelief. Is this a sound path technique? Outside the hall, Xianxia was dumbfounded. A sound path technique can actually be this terrifying. Qin Kei was in a daze. I've never heard of a sound path technique being this powerful. Chu Xingmeng also widened her eyes. Was senior brother Jiang really using a sound path technique just now? Cultivation techniques of the Heavenly Sound sect were known for being mysterious and hard to guard against. They implied opportunistic tactics. In terms of power, everyone's common perception was that they were weaker than orthodox techniques. But Jiang Fan's demonstration directly overturned their understanding of sound path techniques. This score, if performed by the sect master of the Heavenly Sound sect, perhaps even the other 8 sect masters combined would not stand a chance. In fact, they merely doubted their understanding of sound path techniques. But the 2 from the Heavenly Sound sect directly contemplated their lives. Fukohan gazed at the disaster-like scene, eyes blank. This is a sound path technique. As a prodigy of the Heavenly Sound sect, he couldn't believe this level of destruction was caused by a sound path technique. Ming Yulian was also full of shock. Having studied sound path techniques for decades, she was bewildered by what she saw. After a while, she came to her senses, trembling as she spoke. What technique did you just use? Jiang Fan exhaled a breath of turbid air. Looking at the immense destruction, even he was surprised. Was this the destructive power of an Earth-level intermediate technique? He had only used 50% of his spiritual power. If he had used full power, wouldn't the hall have collapsed? Upon hearing Ming Yulian's question, Jiang Fan pointed to the book now reduced to paper scraps, a ray-breaking map. Isn't it just the score you provided? What? Fukohan was shocked. That's impossible. Why did it only have such little power when I performed it? He couldn't even continue out of shame. After a laborious effort playing the zither, he left only a few shallow marks on the granite. The results he had been proud of just now paled in comparison to Jiang Fan's display. But Jiang Fan claimed it was the same score. How could Fukohan accept this? Ming Yulian absolutely refused to believe it. You are lying. The scores you played and we played are worlds apart. They are fundamentally not the same. Jiang Fan did not conceal the truth, stating calmly, to be honest with you, the score I saw is different from the one you saw. When I looked at it, it was a score named Tiger and Dragon Roar Technique, not the array-breaking map that you saw. Upon hearing this, everyone inside and outside the hall seemed to ponder. This was not impossible. It is said that with some extremely difficult inheritances, those with poor comprehension and those with excellent comprehension see different things. The ones with poor comprehension see only the surface. The ones with excellent comprehension see the essence of the inheritance. This array-breaking map might be such a case. Otherwise, it could not explain why the same score, when performed by Jiang Fan, could be so earth-shattering. But when Fukohan played it, it was like scratching the surface. But this was unbearable for Fukohan to accept, resolutely stating, "Impossible. Is my comprehension really worse than yours? Is it indeed as different as the sky and the mud?" He was known as a prodigy born once in a century. At this moment, Gong Kei regained her composure. Looking at the back of Jiang Fan, she couldn't help but take a cold breath. She always thought she understood Jiang Fan's comprehension abilities well. Only now did she realize that she knew only the tip of the iceberg. Her eyes showed deep appreciation, thinking how wonderful it would be if such a talent were part of the spirit beast sect. Well, hearing Fukohan's emotional outburst, causing a scene, Gong Kei felt a bit sympathetic towards him. Fukohan's comprehension was indeed excellent, the best recognized by the Nine Sect. Unfortunately, he was born in the wrong era. He was born in the era of Jiang Fan. He was destined to live forever in Jiang Fan's shadow. She sighed softly, saying, "Stop deceiving yourself. Even if Jiang Fan's sound path technique did not come from the array-breaking map. But being able to comprehend such a powerful sound path technique, do you think his comprehension is worse than yours?" This question left Fukohan speechless. He prided himself on being a sound path prodigy, yet the strongest sound path technique he comprehended couldn't even compare to Jiang Fan's. "I told you, don't embarrass yourself." Gong Kei walked to Jiang Fan's side, saying, "You think the sect favors Jiang Fan more and looks down on you. But have you ever considered why the sect does so? You may doubt the sect's strength, but do not doubt my judgment." Hearing this, Fukohan felt utterly embarrassed. To think that he, in his proudest domain, had been trampled upon by an infamous waste spirit root. He wished he could find a hole to crawl into, and said with shame, "Great Elder, let us leave." He didn't want to stay in the spirit beast sect for another moment. Ming Yulian was also quite embarrassed. Not long ago, she was mocking the proud daughter of the spirit beast sect, Xianxia, for being so respectful to an outer sect disciple. Now her most prized disciple was severely crushed by this outer sect disciple. She nodded, then remembered something, saying, "Since we are here, wouldn't it be a waste to leave like this?" She bowed to Gong Kei. "Sect Master Gong, does your sect have any high-difficulty tasks that need completing?" Gong Kei clapped her forehead. "I almost forgot." The Spirit Beast sect had been assigned many high-level tasks, and they couldn't complete them all in time. Now with an excellent outer sect disciple like Fukohan, he could help take on some of these tasks. "Of course." She immediately took out a pile of jade scrolls, all high-level tasks of levels 2 and 1. Then she thought of Jiang Fan and said, "You pick one too." Jiang Fan was so powerful, capable of slaying the Black Lotus. How could she let him go unexpectedly? Jiang Fan responded without hesitation. "I dare not take on tasks from the Spirit Beast sect." Gong Kei was stunned. Chapter 254. Chapter 254 Double Rewards. Chapter 254. Chapter 254 Double Rewards. Why say this? Gong Kei was a bit puzzled. With Jiang Fan's strength in killing the Black Lotus bandits, he should at least take on a first-level task. Executing a second-level task should pose no difficulty, right? Where did this dare not come from? Jiang Fan showed a thoughtful expression and said, I suspect that your Spirit Beast sect is being targeted. The reason the Black Lotus bandits ambushed at the border of the Spirit Beast sect and Supreme sect is likely to hijack the Demon Wolf Spirit Beast escorted by Senior Sister Zhang Zumu. At first, Jiang Fan also thought the ambush was for him. But upon careful consideration, the spiritual medicine they were escorting was of no use to the Black Lotus bandits. Until he encountered Zhang Zumu's team, he suddenly realized. Gong Kei's eyes sharpened. Are you saying someone sold information to the Black Lotus bandits? Zhang Zumu's task wasn't a secret, but it was only known within the Spirit Beast sect. How did the Black Lotus bandits know and ambush on the necessary route? Clearly, someone within the Spirit Beast sect leaked the information. Jiang Fan slightly shook his head. It's not necessarily just sold to the Black Lotus bandits. Nowadays, calamity is imminent in the Nine-Sect land, and people are anxious. Acquiring important strategic resources has become the top consideration for any power. And the spirit beasts of the Spirit Beast sect, which can assist in combat, are definitely one of the most important resources. There's no reason only the Black Lotus bandits are targeting you. Upon hearing this, Yuan Jiyu and other young disciples were all shocked. Ming Yulian, however, gave Jiang Fan a deep look. Although she was very annoyed that Jiang Fan had embarrassed the Heavenly Sound sect, she had to admit, this guy possessed wisdom beyond his years. Before the Nine-Sect tasks began, the sect master had discussed with her that some sects within the Nine-Sect land would be targeted by unknown forces. The Spirit Beast sect was a key focus. She didn't expect a junior like Jiang Fan to have such exceptional insight. In contrast, their own disciple Fukohan hadn't realized this at all. Very impressive. Gong Kei's beautiful eyes sparkled. You possess a comprehensive perspective at such a young age. It will be hard for you not to achieve success in the future. She was lavish in her praise. You're right, Gong Kei said seriously. Our Spirit Beast sect is indeed a primary target for looting. I reported this to the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion a long time ago. To encourage disciples to actively complete tasks, the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion doubled the rewards for our sect's first-level tasks. Completing one is equivalent to 2 first-level tasks from other sects. Upon hearing this, even Jiang Fan couldn't help but be tempted. Executing tasks for the Spirit Beast sect was certainly risky, but the rewards were extraordinarily lucrative. So, if you want to give it a try, you can choose from these important first-level tasks. If you're concerned about safety, I can also find some third-level tasks for you. Gong Kei was generous towards Jiang Fan. Simple third-level tasks were usually reserved for mid-level disciples to earn merit points and weren't open to outsiders. Only Jiang Fan was given such a privilege. After a long consideration, Jiang Fan said, I'll choose a first-level task. Firstly, the rewards were indeed enticing. Secondly, he wouldn't feel right taking third-level tasks from the mid- and lower-level disciples of the Spirit Beast sect. I knew you would choose a first-level task. Gong Kei pointed to several jade scrolls. Pick one first. This made Fukohan, who was watching, secretly unhappy. If they were both choosing first-level tasks, why should Jiang Fan go first? Shouldn't the stronger one pick first? He said, Junior brother Jiang, first-level tasks are not easy to complete. You'd better act within your abilities. He acknowledged that Jiang Fan had high comprehension. But rumors about him having no spirit root weren't baseless, right? Does he qualify to execute a first-level task? Jiang Fan said expressionlessly, mind your own business. Then he began selecting from the 10 first-level tasks. After careful consideration, he picked up a jade scroll. Let's see, which task did you choose? Gong Kei took the jade scroll and read its contents, her pretty face slightly changing. Why did you choose this one? Change to another one? This jade scroll contained the task of escorting 10,000-mile eagles to the Desire sect. The 1,000-mile eagle was the fastest flying demon bird in the Nine-Sect land. No exceptions. They were irreplaceable scouting spirit beasts for the current defense against the beast tide. At present, only the Spirit Beast sect had 10 of them in the entire Nine-Sect land. According to the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion's orders, they all needed to be sent to the Western Front at the Desire sect. Their importance and preciousness were self-evident. If this task were to be executed, they would undoubtedly be targeted. Fukohan glanced at the jade scroll's contents and immediately said, Aren't you being ridiculous? Is this a task you can complete? Give it to us. We have a great elder accompanying us to ensure no issues in completion. Gong Kei felt the same. Such an important task? Letting Jiang Fan handle it made her truly uneasy. Firstly, she was worried about losing the spirit beasts. Secondly, with the Desires sect on the front lines of the demon beast army, the area could turn into a battlefield at any moment. The chaos of the scene would be unpredictable. Jiang Fan going there would be extremely dangerous. No worries, I'll take this task. Jiang Fan took the jade scroll back and slipped it into his robe. His firm attitude was unmistakable. No, you must choose another, Gong Kei insisted. She couldn't allow Jiang Fan to be reckless. Losing the 1,000-mile eagles would be a minor loss. Jiang Fan's death would be an irreparable disaster. Jiang Fan helplessly sighed. Sect Master, one step aside, please. He walked to a corner. Gong Kei, frowning, followed him, her arms crossed, unyieldingly saying, No matter what you say, it won't work. She stopped mid-sentence upon seeing what Jiang Fan held in his hand, a jade box. Her beautiful eyes narrowed to pinholes. Her flawless and pretty face was filled with shock, disbelievingly saying, This isn't this. Jiang Fan quickly covered her lips, shushing her. Sect Master should know, but please don't spread it. Gong Kei's mind was filled with astonishment. She even doubted if she was seeing it wrong. Wasn't that the jade talisman of nascent soul strike that had been highly sought after recently? She had dispatched an elder to seize it at a high cost. Unfortunately, it was ultimately snatched by the great elder of the giant sect, Tai Bubai, for an exorbitant price of 2 million crystals. But how did it end up in Jiang Fan's hands? Jiang Fan put away the jade box. To secure this task, he decided to take the plunge, because the merit reward for this task was simply too much. A regular first-level task rewarded 100 merit points, but this task of escorting the 1,000-mile eagles rewarded as many as 200 points. Plus the doubled reward, making it 400 merit points. It was worth the risk for Jiang Fan to accomplish it. So, Sect Master Gong? Jiang Fan smiled faintly. Gong Kei regained her composure, her lips moved, itching to ask how Jiang Fan obtained the jade talisman, but she forcibly suppressed her curiosity. It was Jiang Fan's secret not to be pried into. Returning to the task issue, she extended her fair finger, poking Jiang Fan's forehead. With a slight roll of her eyes, she lightly scolded. Little rascal, with such an item, why didn't you take it out earlier? Do you enjoy seeing me worry for you? After speaking, she realized it sounded somewhat ambiguous. She quickly changed the subject. All right, I will announce the task arrangement now. Fukohan watched Jiang Fan return, a mocking smirk forming on his lips. Do you really think Gong Kei favors you and will cater to your wishes? She is the sect master, she must consider the bigger picture. Without real skills, how can you even think about taking on such a task? Return the task quietly. The 200 merit points plus the doubled reward were incredibly tempting to him as well. He was determined to get this task. However, when Gong Kei returned, she publicly took out the registration book and, without expression, registered the task under Jiang Fan's name. Chapter 255. Chapter 255 Gong Kei's Investigation. Chapter 255. Chapter 255 Gong Kei's Investigation. Fukohan was stunned and quickly said, Sect Master Gong, please wait. You want to assign this task to Jiang Fan? This was completely different from what he had anticipated. Could it be that Gong Kei was so spoiling Jiang Fan that she no longer cared about the bigger picture? Ming Yulian was also extremely surprised and solemnly said, Sect Master Gong, please reconsider. Countless forces have set their sights on the 1,000-mile eagle, including many powerful martial path families. Even I cannot guarantee that I can safely deliver the 1,000-mile eagles. Let alone Jiang Fan? Gong Kei acted as if she hadn't heard. With a stroke of her jade pen, she wrote down the task under Jiang Fan's name. This made Fukohan both anxious and angry. He shouted, Jiang Fan, what did you give Sect Master Gong in return? Just a moment ago, Gong Kei was vehemently opposed. Why did her attitude make a 180-degree turn after a few whispered words in a corner? Ming Yulian was also outraged. She incredulously said, Sect Master Gong, this concerns the 9 sects' resistance against the beast tide. Please reconsider. These 10,000-mile eagles must not be lost. Although she didn't directly ask like Fukohan in her heart, it was hard not to suspect that Gong Kei had received some benefit from Jiang Fan. Otherwise, this would be too careless. Gong Kei hummed with an imposing aura. How this sect handles matters is none of your concern. The task to the Desires sect is final. You can only choose another mission. Fukohan was so angry his teeth itched. Such a highly meritorious primary task was given to a piece of trash. Unbelievable. Helplessly, they had to choose a different task. It was to go to the giant sect. Once the task was settled, Gong Kei said, "You can depart after half a day." Preparing the spirit beasts, loading the carts, and pre-departure checks all took time. Taking advantage of this interval, Jiang Fan wanted to see if he could break through his current realm with the Earth Phoenix grass marrow. "Sect Master, may I borrow the cultivation room?" Jiang Fan asked. Gong Kei immediately guessed his intention. She reminded him, "I suggest you have more than 3 days of free time before attempting a breakthrough. The medicinal potency of Earth Phoenix grass marrow is very potent and should be used little by little. Taking it all at once will result in a lot of medicinal power leaking out before being absorbed." "Is that so?" Jiang Fan thought for a moment and still said, "I'll give it a try." "Could the medicinal potency of Earth Phoenix grass marrow escape the absorption of my transparent spirit root?" Gong Kei helplessly said, "You're really stubborn." "Fine, use my secret cultivation chamber. Try a small amount first and you'll understand the potency of this medicine." Under the envious eyes of Fukohan, Gong Kei led Jiang Fan to a fragrant secret chamber in the back hall of the main hall. It contained the items Gong Kei usually used for cultivation. There were also several silk martial robes for her to change into during cultivation, along with a chest wrap. Wait, a chest wrap. Jiang Fan's gaze fell upon a silver-embroidered brocade chest wrap on a shelf in the corner. He couldn't help but feel awkward. "Why aren't you going in?" Gong Kei looked at the motionless Jiang Fan with a puzzled expression. Following his gaze, her face turned slightly red. She quickly walked over and hastily bundled up the martial robes and chest wrap together, holding them in her arms. With a face tinged with redness, she walked out of the chamber. As she passed by Jiang Fan, she gave him a resentful glance. "So young and already learning bad habits. Cultivate well. Half a day later, I will inspect your cultivation results." With that, she kicked his buttocks, sending him stumbling into the chamber. She closed the chamber door behind him. Jiang Fan rubbed his buttocks, looking speechless. "You left them lying around and now you blame me." "So unreasonable." Time was pressing, so he sat cross-legged on a bare skin mat. He took out the Earth Phoenix grass marrow and swallowed a mouthful without hesitation. Sure enough, immediately a scorching breath surged within him, like a blaze. The powerful medicinal energy spread to his limbs and bones, releasing an incredibly pure spiritual energy. The amount of spiritual energy was 100 times that of a top-grade foundation establishment pill. An ordinary person could absorb at most 50% of the energy. The rest would uncontrollably dissipate through the pores and 7 apertures. But for Jiang Fan, with his transparent spirit root, this didn't exist. With the operation of his mental method, his spirit root absorbed spiritual energy from all directions like the roots of a great tree. The erupting spiritual energy was captured without a trace left. Refined into pure spiritual power, it settled into the spirit pond in his dantian. 2 hours passed. Jiang Fan slowly opened his eyes. When he looked within, he saw that the liquefied spiritual power in his spirit pond was shimmering, almost filling the pond. "Foundation Establishment 8th Layer." Jiang Fan's eyes showed joy. His spiritual power had almost doubled. The later stages of foundation establishment, the greater the gap between each layer. Jiang Fan had an epiphany. He was confident that if he encountered a strong enemy like Black Lotus again, he wouldn't need as many moves. Within 3 moves, he could end the battle. Seeing that he still had 2 hours, he didn't plan to waste time. The place he was going was the Desire Sect. He heard that demon beasts were restless there, and a beast tide could erupt at any moment. He had to be well prepared. He immediately took out some medicinal materials and started refining on the spot. Soon after, over 100 small, red beans-like peculiar pills were refined. The special fragrance which had a fatal attraction to demon beasts made the little Killin, sleeping soundly in his wide robe, poke out. It kept sniffing with its nose, moving closer to the pills. Its mouth was watering. With sleepy eyes, it communicated telepathically with Jiang Fan. "Master is so kind, making spirit pills for me again." However, when it saw the pills clearly, it quickly recoiled. Its eyes widened, fully awake. It ground its teeth and said, "Master, why did you make this stuff?" It hadn't forgotten how it, a fearless spirit beast that could traverse space, had been defeated by Jiang Fan. Yes, it was precisely these pills with a fatal allure to demon beasts. After eating one back then, it had fainted on the spot. When it woke up, Jiang Fan gave it a multiple-choice question about being steamed, stir-fried, or made into soup. Seeing these pills again, it couldn't help but grind its teeth in hatred. It's not for you. What are you afraid of? Jiang Fan put all the pills into a jade bottle. At that moment, there was a knock on the door from Gong Kei outside. How's your cultivation coming along? Jiang Fan quickly pushed the little Killin's head back in and said, Don't come out. Then he calmly opened the door. Gong Kei walked in and casually closed the stone door behind her. In the not-so-spacious chamber, the two of them were left alone. This made Jiang Fan involuntarily think of the chest wrap he had seen earlier, and his heart began to race. Sect Master, what are you doing? Gong Kei also sensed the somewhat ambiguous atmosphere and cleared her throat. Although you have the nascent soul strike jade talisman, I am still worried that you might not be able to handle everything. Attack me with all your might and I will test your true strength. True strength. Jiang Fan nodded slightly. He also wanted to know how much his strength had grown after breaking through a realm. Okay, Sect Master, be careful, Jiang Fan reminded her. Then he began to channel his spiritual power. Be careful, Gong Kei chuckled. She was a dignified Sect Master, a martial artist in the late core formation realm. What realm was Jiang Fan in? Could he even touch her? Just do it, Jiang Fan frowned and said. Sect Master, don't be careless. Getting hurt wouldn't be good. Getting hurt? Gong Kei was both amused and exasperated. All right, whatever you say. She smiled and casually gathered a tenth of her spiritual power into her palm. Just enough to make a defense. Jiang Fan nodded and stopped hesitating. Without using any magic artifacts, his most powerful technique was undoubtedly the heavenly ruined finger. Immediately, he channeled all his spiritual power. He roared, Purple energy comes from the east, he pointed, and a dazzling purple beam shot directly at Gong Kei. Gong Kei smiled and raised her palm. She gently blocked the purple beam and said cheerfully, Not bad, you've learned a new finger technique. She clearly remembered the fragmented earth-level finger technique move that Jiang Fan had comprehended on Moke's stone wall. However, just as she spoke, her smile froze on her face because she felt a scorching pain from her palm. The tenth of her gathered spiritual power in her palm had been pierced. Chapter 256. Chapter 256. Regret. Chapter 256. Chapter 256. Regret. Gong Kei's heart trembled. She was at the late stage of the core formation realm. Even if she had only used a tenth of her spiritual power, it was enough to form a defense that even someone at the second level of core formation would have difficulty shaking. Jiang Fan actually pierced through it. What made her even more terrified was that the residual power of the purple light beam continued to attack her palm. She hurriedly circulated all her spiritual power to her palm. Only then did she manage to block it before her hand got pierced through. As the purple light beam dissipated, Gong Kei's palm burned with pain. Without even looking, she knew it must be injured. Her lips twitched slightly, revealing a trace of pain. Sect Master, are you okay? Jiang Fan noticed the pain on her face and asked in surprise, Did I hurt you? No way, am I really that strong? Gong Kei quickly composed her expression. How could she admit that she had been injured by a little guy in the Foundation establishment realm? If word got out, how would she keep her dignity? Hiding her injured hand behind her back, she calmly said, What are you thinking? This level of power can't hurt me. Jiang Fan didn't doubt much. After all, they were vastly different in realms. How could he possibly hurt her? He couldn't help but praise, Sect Master's power is profound, I am in awe. I thought at least you'd take me a bit more seriously. I didn't expect you to deflect it so casually. I'll have to work twice as hard in the future. In awe. Gong Kei felt the burning pain in her palm and wished she could beat him up. If she hadn't reacted in time, her hand would have been crippled by him. This guy, so fierce even at the Foundation establishment realm, what will he be like when he reaches the core formation realm? She grumpily said, Don't get cocky. The martial path is like rowing upstream, not moving forward means falling back. Stay humble, understand? Now let's go. Receive the 10,000-mile eagles you need to escort, then get lost. Jiang Fan was puzzled. He blinked his innocent eyes. What did I do to get scolded like this? Women's thoughts are really hard to figure out. Shaking his head, he followed Gong Kei out of the hall. Gong Kei walked ahead, the pain in her palm worsening, making her grit her teeth secretly. With a somewhat resentful tone, she said, What realm are you at anyway? To hurt her hand like that. It's really unreasonable. Jiang Fan didn't hide it from her and said, 7th layer of the Foundation establishment realm. After a pause, he added, No, that's before taking the Earth Phoenix grass marrow. Now I'm at the 8th layer of the Foundation establishment realm. What? Gong Kei suddenly froze, her steps halting abruptly. She turned around in disbelief. Her eyes widened. Seventh layer of the Foundation Establishment Realm? A month ago, during the New Disciples competition at the Green Cloud Sect, Jiang Fan was only at the fourth layer of the Foundation Establishment Realm. How did he suddenly jump to the seventh layer? What kind of heaven-defying cultivation speed is this? And, after taking the Earth Phoenix grass marrow, he directly broke through a realm in just 2 hours. This kind of domineering spiritual object generally requires many doses to fully digest. Jiang Fan was walking with his head down, pondering why Gong Kei had scolded him just now. He didn't notice Gong Kei abruptly stop in front of him. By the time he saw her feet, his head had already bumped into something soft and elastic. After a slight pause, he realized what had happened and hastily backed away in fright. He didn't dare to look Gong Kei in the eyes, turned his face away and kept apologizing. "I'm sorry, I didn't see where I was going." In fact, Gong Kei didn't look at him either. Her face flashed an odd expression before quickly turning away, her voice unnatural. Let's go." She discreetly pressed her numbed chest, slightly annoyed. What on earth is going on? Why do such inappropriate things keep happening with Jiang Fan? First, there was the emotional hug. Then her chest binding was seen by him clearly. And now though all these incidents were unintentional, they gave Gong Kei a slight sense of oppression. With mixed emotions, she led Jiang Fan to the foot of the Spirit Beast Sect mountain. 10 fine horses each pulled a broad wooden plank with wheels. On each plank was a tall, black bird. Golden beaks, wings spanning a yard wide, claws sharp as knife tips. The horses dragging them obediently lowered their heads, not daring to make a sound. This was evidence of their intimidation. "Master, junior brother," Yuan Jiu approached. She was surprised to find that the atmosphere between her master and Jiang Fan seemed a bit off. The former had no expression, lacking the usual warmth and joy towards Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan also kept a respectful distance from Gong Kei. She secretly wondered, could something have happened between them? Of course, she didn't dare ask. She pretended not to notice and said to Jiang Fan, "Junior brother Jiang, these are the 1,000-mile eagles. Here are the keys to their chains, keep them safe." She handed a bunch of keys to Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan then noticed that each eagle's ankle was bound by an inky black mysterious iron chain. This was to prevent the eagles from disobeying orders and flying away on their own during the journey. "Got it." He stuffed the keys into his robes. Then, looking at the 10 horses, he felt troubled. He could manage 3 to 5 on his own, but with 10, if they were attacked, he would struggle to manage them all. Seeing his concern, Yuan Jiu reminded him, "Junior brother, this task is for a team of 4. You can carry it out alone or find 3 more teammates. It won't affect your merit points. It's a pity I already have a mission, otherwise I'd definitely join you for a teammate spot." She looked regretful yet envious. At this time, many disciples of the Spirit Beast sect gathered at the mountain gate. Notably, Qin Ke, Chu Xingmeng, and those who hadn't left yet like Yiliangxing. Even Lu Xinghe was still at the foot of the mountain. Hearing this, Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng became interested. This was a 400 merit point super task. Who wouldn't be interested? But this wasn't a task for disciples in the 5th layer of the Foundation Establishment Realm. So the two exchanged wry smiles. They sensibly repressed the idea. Unexpectedly, Jiang Fan glanced around, saw the 2 girls, and gestured them over. "Junior sister Chu, senior sister Qin, what are you waiting for? Come help me escort these 1,000-mile eagles." Huh. Qin Ke pointed at herself. "You mean let us also join this task?" Chu Xingmeng immediately waved her hand. No, we're not qualified for this. "Junior brother Jiang, you should find stronger partners." Jiang Fan smiled warmly. "Aren't we teammates? Come on." This attractive reward meant he had no trouble finding strong partners. But the problem was, he couldn't trust others on this dangerous trip. Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng were reliable partners who had traveled with him all along. Though their skills were a bit lacking, just minding the eagles was enough. He would handle any enemies. The 2 girls hesitated before slowly moving to Jiang Fan's side. Chu Xingmeng looked uncertain. "Senior brother Jiang, I'm worried I might hold you back." Qin Ke also hesitated. "Maybe you should find someone else." Jiang Fan didn't give them a choice. He lifted Chu Xingmeng in front of the 4th horse. "You handle horses 4, 5, and 6. Then placed Qin Ke on the 7th horse's back. "You handle the last 4 horses." After arranging their tasks, Jiang Fan prepared to leave. At that moment, a hesitant figure approached, saying awkwardly, "Junior brother Jiang, what about me? I'm also a member of our team." The newcomer was none other than Lu Xing. Seeing the two junior sisters, who were much weaker than himself, getting assigned a 400 merit points super task, he couldn't stay still. Chapter 257. Chapter 257 Human Relations. Chapter 257. Chapter 257 Human Relations, therefore, bearing the unusual gazes of others. He shamelessly requested to join. Jiang Fan looked at him indifferently and said without thinking, 3 people are enough. Senior brother Lu, go take on a task by yourself. He was fed up, taking an annoying guy along the way to disgust himself. Lu Xing became anxious. With his ability, he could only take on a 3rd-level mission at most. But any sect's low-level tasks were already in short supply even for their own disciples. How could they give one to an outsider? Even if they did, it would not be worth 1% of the mission at hand. Junior brother Jiang, we are all teammates, you can't be so biased. For the 400 points of merit, he was willing to lose face. Jiang Fan laughed. Not wanting to argue with him, but he kept pestering. His expression turned a bit colder. Our teammate status only applied to the previous mission. It ended as soon as we handed it in. Besides, even if I am biased, what of it? At this point, Lu Xing was still unwilling to give up and angrily said, Jiang, don't push it too far. I only offended you with words. Is there a need to be so petty? Are you even a man? Jiang Fan squinted his eyes. He always reasoned with reasonable people. Troublemakers full of slander, a fist would suffice. Just as he was about to make a move, Yilangsing couldn't stand it any more and scolded angrily, Shut up! Aren't you ashamed? It's one thing to shamelessly ask to be taken along, but to be refused and then speak harshly. She felt utterly embarrassed to have such a shameless cousin. Lu Xing snorted, Mind your own business. Today, if Jiang Fan doesn't give me an explanation, I won't let it go. Yilangsing was already feeling extremely embarrassed. Lu Xing had taken shamelessness to the extreme. She had seen people taking advantage, but never so brazenly. What made her face burn even more was that Lu Xing still hoped to tangle with Jiang Fan. He was entirely unaware of Jiang Fan's strength. To stop Lu Xing from speaking further, Yilangsing, with an angry look on her face, dashed forward in a single step. Lu Xing's face changed and he shouted, What are you doing? Slap. Ah, screams rang out. Lu Xing was brutally beaten up by Yilangsing in front of everyone. He was beaten until his face was bruised and swollen, and he repeatedly begged for mercy before she stopped. Get lost, you disgraceful thing, Yilangsing said furiously. Lu Xing, utterly humiliated, didn't dare to tangle any further. He could only look enviously at Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng, and then fled in regret. Yilangsing took a deep breath with a deeply apologetic look. She approached Jiang Fan and cupped her hands. Sorry to make you laugh, junior brother Jiang. I will immediately write a letter asking my uncle to discipline him properly. He's getting more and more out of line. She sighed inwardly. Look at Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng, and then look at Lu Xing. All were Jiang Fan's teammates, but their rewards were vastly different. As she had previously told Lu Xing, her cousin had missed a great opportunity. Only she didn't expect this would be proven so quickly. Jiang Fan said, Let him be. Yilangsing sighed even more in her heart. Look at Jiang Fan's magnanimity and then at Lu Xing. Simply incomparable. She cupped her hands again and said, Then I wish junior brother Jiang a smooth journey. Looking at Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng on horseback, she was genuinely envious. This was a 400 merit point super mission. Most disciples might not even get this much after the beast tide. These 2 lucky girls, just because they gained Jiang Fan's favor, were skyrocketing. Senior sister Yi, aren't you coming with me? But Jiang Fan suddenly asked. Yilangsing was caught off guard, surprised. Me? Junior brother Jiang, are you inviting me to go with you? This caused the spirit beast sex disciples to be astonished. Their eyes moved between Yuan Jiyu and Yilangsing. Wasn't Jiang Fan closer to Yuan Jiyu? Why did he give the last precious spot to Yilangsing? The 2 of them didn't get along. Yuan Jiyu's heart instantly felt a pang, looking at Jiang Fan with a hint of grievance. In terms of acquaintance, she had known Jiang Fan much longer than Yilangsing. In terms of friendship, when she heard Jiang Fan was in trouble, she was the first to arrive. But with such a good opportunity, Jiang Fan thought of her rival Yilangsing. She felt a sense of betrayal and anger. Who knew? Jiang Fan suddenly turned his tone and asked back, Oh, senior sister, ye didn't senior sister Yuan tell you? Senior sister Yuan entrusted me to leave the last spot for you. She didn't notify you? Yuan Jiyu was stunned. Who asked to get a spot for Yilangsing? She opened her mouth to refute Jiang Fan but was silently stopped by Gong Kei. Liangxing was also full of astonishment, stammering, "Senior Sister Yuan got this spot for me?" She looked at Yuan Jiu with disbelief. Jiang Fan said with heartfelt emotion, "Senior Sister Yuan said, the beast tide is imminent. None of us know how many will survive. We should resolve past grudges early to avoid regret." Not just Liangxing. Even the disciples nearby were moved. Yes, disaster was imminent. Those standing here today might be cold corpses tomorrow. Past grievances were merely fleeting clouds. Liangxing felt deeply moved. A huge wave of guilt surged in her heart. She could have never imagined. Yuan Jiu, being younger, was more considerate of her fellow sect members. With pursed lips, she approached Yuan Jiu, bowed, and gently said, "Junior Sister Yuan, I have many faults in the past. Please accept my apology." Yuan Jiu was flattered and quickly helped her up. "Senior Sister, please don't flatter me. In fact, about the spot." She wanted to tell the truth, but saw Jiang Fan giving her a look to stop. She could only accept it with a thick face, feeling guilty. "I also have some faults. I apologize to you too." The two of them exchanged looks, and their gazes softened considerably. The previous hostility disappeared. Both of them were proud individuals. If not for the right opportunity, they might never reconcile in this lifetime. But today, Jiang Fan used this opportunity to resolve their grudge. When the beast tide arrived, with no lingering gaps between them, they would cooperate better, increasing their chances of survival. Jiang Fan felt genuinely relieved. He glanced at Gong Kei, a complex look in his eyes. Solemnly cupping his hands, he said, "Sect Master, I'm leaving. Take good care of yourself." What seemed like an ordinary farewell sounded to Gong Kei like a bittersweet parting from a familiar person. She waved her sleeve gently and tenderly said, "Be careful on the road." Jiang Fan nodded, controlling the convoy, and departed slowly. Gong Kei stood at the mountain gate. Watching Jiang Fan's gradually fading figure, she felt inexplicably empty inside, like the loneliness after a firework display. Yuan Jiu sighed softly, "Oh, junior brother Jiang, a favor. We are all peers, yet his social skills are much deeper." Understanding Jiang Fan's meticulous effort to resolve their grudge, she felt a complex sense of appreciation. She realized her master hadn't responded for a long time. Turning around, she saw her master staring blankly at the departing figure of Jiang Fan, entranced. Before Jiang Fan came, Gong Kei was as calm as water, rarely smiling. After he came, her joy was visible to the naked eye. Recalling the previous subtle state between them, Yuan Jiu vaguely understood something. After hesitating for a moment, she quietly asked, "Master, do you like Jiang Fan?" Chapter 258. Chapter 258. When you were born, I was already old. Chapter 258. Chapter 258. When you were born, I was already old. Buzz. Gong Kei's body trembled violently, and the spiritual power within her shook uncontrollably, emitting a faint buzzing sound. She suddenly turned her head and whispered urgently, "What nonsense are you talking about? I am the head of a sect, and Jiang Fan is just a junior. How could I have such shameful thoughts?" She noticed that Yuan Jiu was trembling in fear. Only then did she realize that she had lost control of her emotions. After taking a few breaths to compose herself, she smoothed over her lapse of composure. Gazing at the figure of Jiang Fan, who had disappeared from sight, she stood in silence for a long time before finally turning around. In a voice only Yuan Jiu could hear, she sighed softly, "If I were 10 years younger, perhaps I might." Speaking of Jiang Fan, 2 days later, they smoothly arrived at the western border of the Spirit Beast sect. A Yangtze River several miles wide blocked their path, gazing out at the scenery. The new river roared against the shore, with turbulent waves roiling toward the sky. The surging, cross-flowing river water was intimidating to behold. Choosing Meng gasped in awe, "So this is the new river. It's rumored to be bottomless and 10 miles wide. Even the 9 sect masters can only cross it by boat." The one who knew the most about the river was naturally Liangxing. She nodded slightly with her snow-white chin and introduced to Jiang Fan. "The new river marks the boundary between the Spirit Beast sect and the Desires sect. Once we cross it, we'll be within the Desires sect's territory. Ahead, there is a dock managed by a local Marshall Path family. We can borrow a large boat to cross the river easily." Jiang Fan gazed into the distance. Soon enough, he saw a dock not far from the riverbank, with the shadows of several boats faintly visible. He immediately spurred his horse, leading the group dauntlessly toward it. As they approached, they discovered that there was also a large contingent beside the dock. It was an unfortunate coincidence that it was Ming Yulian and Fu Chaohun who had set out earlier. They were waiting for the boatmen to load their horses onto the boat while they rested in a pavilion, seeing Jiang Fan approach. Fu Chaohun sneered, "Oh, what luck! You've made it here safe and sound." Jiang Fan replied indifferently, "You'd better worry about your 200 merit points," with a single sentence. He instantly touched Fu Chaohun's sore spot. Both were executing a level 1 task, both would face danger. Jiang Fan's mission offered a final reward of 400 merit points, whereas he would only receive 200. Who could tolerate such a disparity? Fu Chaohun smashed the teacup in his hand against the stone table, shattering it. Under Gong Kei's protection within the Spirit Beast sect, you can be as arrogant as you want. Outside, you better behave. Jiang Fan, composed and unruffled, held the reins. Instead of being afraid, he rode forward to confront him. He glanced at Ming Yulian, who remained silent while letting her disciple make trouble, and calmly said, "The same goes for you. If you want to cause trouble, I'm ready." Bam! Fu Chaohun slapped the stone table in front of him, stood up abruptly, and laughed angrily. "I see you're courting death." Warning Jiang Fan once, instead of intimidating him, actually provoked him to approach, completely disregarding him, clang, with his movement. Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng both drew their swords and spurred their horses to Jiang Fan's side. Yilaixing also rode over, frowning at Fu Chaohun, and snorted. "You're not even out of the Spirit Beast sect's territory, yet you dare to be so reckless. Once within the Desire sect's domain, do you plan to kill Jiang Fan and sabotage our mission to escort the 1,000-mile Eagle?" The more they protected Jiang Fan, the angrier Fu Chaohun became. His spiritual power surged within him, and he scoffed. "So what if there are many of you? A bunch of shrimp soldiers and crab generals dare to challenge me, Fu Chaohun?" Seeing that he was determined to make an issue here, Jiang Fan drew his black sword and pointed it far toward him. "So be it, I'll make you give up your delusions." Otherwise, he would always think Jiang Fan was easy to bully, and the trouble would never end. Just as the confrontation seemed imminent, Ming Yulian, who had been pretending not to hear, seeing the situation escalating, finally spoke up. "Chaohun, why bother with them? If it was just a personal grudge with Jiang Fan, it wouldn't be a big deal. It wouldn't matter much even if it was exposed. But with the disciples from the other 3 sects involved, the situation changed. Firstly, it meant offending 3 sects at once. Secondly, these 4 were tasked with the crucial mission of escorting the 1,000-mile Eagle, which could turn the tide of the battle. If they were severely injured and the mission failed, could Fu Chaohun escape the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion's punishment? Could he, the Great Elder who allowed his disciple to act violently, avoid responsibility? "But Great Elder, this kid is too arrogant," Fu Chaohun protested unwillingly. Ming Yulian replied calmly, "What use is boasting? Let's see if he can cross the river safely first." Fu Chaohun finally realized. He withdrew his spiritual power and showed a gloating expression. "I almost forgot to tell you. The new river has been restless lately, with a group of powerful water demon beasts appearing mysteriously. They have been causing storms, overturning many passing boats. Without a strong expert, you can't get across." Jiang Fan looked toward the surging river with a doubtful expression. Yilaixing was also skeptical. "This stretch of water has been swept by our Spirit Beast sect countless times. If there were water demons, wouldn't we know?" However, she quickly noticed a few derelict boats moored on the riverbank. On the boat hulls, faint claw marks were visible, and some even had large holes. Her pupils slightly constricted, and she rode her horse to inspect the boat with a large hole. Not long after, she returned to Jiang Fan, holding a tusk as long as an arm with a serious expression. "Junior brother Jiang, I'm afraid we'll have to take a detour." She showed Jiang Fan the menacing tusk. Chu Xingmeng compared it to her own arm and shivered. "Teeth as long as an arm. This demon beast is formidable. This is just an infant's tooth," Yilaixing said. "An adult's teeth are longer than a person's height. One bite can snap a medium-sized boat in 2, and it moves swiftly like lightning. Without martial artists of mid-stage core formation or higher, it's hard to handle." After finishing, she waited for Jiang Fan to ask further about the demon beast. In terms of understanding demon beasts, who in the 9 sect could compare with the Spirit Beast sect? This was her area of expertise, a chance to showcase her value. However, to her surprise, Jiang Fan took the tooth, glanced at it, and muttered, "So the new river has red-scaled evil flood dragons. These beasts are very ferocious, and this is their mating season. Any disturbance easily angers them. Crossing the river won't be easy." Yilaixing couldn't believe her ears. Jiang Fan actually recognized the source of the tooth and knew that it was their mating season. This was something she, as an elite in the spirit beast sect, had never heard of. She stood there for a while, feeling somewhat defeated. I didn't expect that junior brother Jiang also had knowledge in the field of demon beasts. Xianxia is impressed. Not far away, Fukohan frowned. How come this Jiang knows everything? But in a way, this was good. Knowing the threat of the red-scaled evil flood dragons made the next part easier to say. He smirked. You can't cross the river on your own. I'll be generous and have our great elder escort you across. But you must show some appreciation. That bottle of Earth Phoenix grass marrow you have, I like it very much. Consider it a protection fee. What do you say? Jiang Fan sheathed his black sword and said with a meaningful smile, escort me. Or rather, I escort you, which seems more reliable. Chapter 259. Chapter 259, Despicable. Chapter 259. Chapter 259, Despicable what? Not to mention Ming Yulian and Fukohan. The jaws of Xianxia, Qin Ke, and Chu Xingmeng all dropped. Jiang Fan, a foundation establishment, was going to escort a late-stage core formation powerhouse. Was this a joke? Xianxia whispered, Junior brother Jiang, isn't it inappropriate to say that? As a teammate, she felt this statement was too absurd. Jiang Fan calmly said, no matter how strong a martial artist is, their lethality against underwater creatures is greatly reduced. In contrast, during the mating season, red-scaled evil flood dragons temporarily awaken a terrifying sonic ability. Even late-stage core formation powerhouses find it tricky to deal with. The first half of his statement had Xianxia nodding in agreement. Humans could showcase their full strength against land-based demon beasts. In the sky and underwater, it was difficult to exert full lethality. Because one flew into the sky while the other dove into the water, many cultivation techniques couldn't effectively attack. She was skeptical about the second half. The red-scaled evil flood dragon was an obscure demon beast, and she had only come across brief mentions in texts. But her impression didn't include any descriptions of its sonic abilities. Jiang Fan, an outsider, couldn't possibly know more than she, an insider, right? She didn't believe it, let alone Fukohan. Ha ha ha, you protect us. Fukohan felt he had heard the biggest joke. Jiang Fan, oh Jiang Fan, what gives you such confidence? To spout such ridiculous words. Ming Yulian's old face darkened. She glanced sideways at Jiang Fan. Young man, I've seen insults, but never someone who insults others like you. Protect me? What a joke. I'll be watching closely to see how you cross the river. Chaohun, let's go. Their convoy had already boarded the ships and was ready. Fukohan cast Jiang Fan a contemptuous glance, saying, what a pity you missed the only chance to cross the river. Take the long way around, humph. As the sails were raised, their ship slowly headed out to the vast river. Xianxia sighed lightly. If only they hadn't fallen out with each other. Now they had to take a route that added half a month to their journey. But Jiang Fan said, borrow a ship, let's set off too. What? Xianxia was shocked. Wouldn't that be very dangerous? She couldn't imagine a scenario without a powerful martial artist on board. What if an adult red-scaled evil flood dragon attacked them? It could bite a ship in two with one snap. Jiang Fan took out a large bottle of red pills and handed 20 each to the three women. This is called three-step drunk, and it is highly attractive to demon beasts. Once ingested, the demon beasts will fall unconscious within a few breaths. If we encounter any demon beasts later, just throw these pills into the water and they will scramble for them. Jiang Fan was confident about three-step drunk. After all, even a heavenly spirit beast like the little Killin fell for it. How could ordinary demon beasts resist its allure? The three women accepted the pills with a mix of belief and doubt. Not long after, they borrowed a large ship, loaded 10 horse-drawn carriages, and set sail. Chu Xingmeng was at the helm. Qin Ke, he patrolled anxiously around the ship's railing, clutching a red pill and observing the surroundings. Xianxia wasn't idle either. She magically took out 2 palm-sized, sharp-eyed black hawks from her sleeve. Highly intelligent, the hawks communicated with Xianxia before soaring into the sky, circling the ship. If there's any underwater disturbance, my spirit beasts will alert me in time. Xianxia crossed her arms, but her face showed little relief. Jiang Fan sat cross-legged at the bow of the ship. A black sword lay horizontally on his knees, spiritual power surging through him, like a weapon ready to strike. Everyone's nerves were taut. Nobody dared to breathe heavily. The only sounds were the gurgling of the ship slicing through the river and the splashing of waves against the hull. Unknowingly, they had crossed the center of the river, slowly moving toward the shore. From the bow, they could clearly see the harbor on the riverbank. With careful inspection, one could even spot faint human figures moving about. Xianxia slightly relaxed her tense nerves. It seems we were lucky and didn't encounter the red-scaled evil flood dragon. These dragons prefer causing trouble in the deep parts. We've already passed the deepest area. If there are no surprises, we're safe. Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng's faces, tight from tension, finally relaxed. Qin Ke laughed. The red-scaled evil flood dragon didn't come, we scared ourselves. Chu Xingmeng took a few deep breaths, feeling more at ease. She stood on the deck, observing further than the others. Suddenly, she said with some doubt, "Is it my imagination? Why do I feel like we're catching up to Fukohan's ship?" Xianxia and Qin Ke looked up. Sure enough, they saw Fukohan's ship growing clearer. The river was vast and unobstructed. They had seen Fukohan's ship when they started out, but at that time it looked as small as an ant. The distance between them was quite far, but now Fukohan's ship was only a mile away. Both were sailboats, wind-driven. The speed should be the same. How were they getting closer? "Go around." At this moment, Jiang Fan suddenly stood up at the bow and said urgently. Chu Xingmeng was puzzled. She adjusted the ship's direction, confused. "But the harbor is directly ahead." Xianxia and Qin Ke also looked puzzled. They were almost ashore. Why change direction? Jiang Fan said in a deep voice, "It's not that we're fast. They encountered trouble and couldn't move forward." Trouble? The three women's nerves, which had just relaxed, suddenly tightened. They all thought of the same thing, the red-scaled evil flood dragon. Fukohan's ship was attacked by the red-scaled evil flood dragon. Chu Xingmeng shuddered and quickly turned the rudder, steering the ship off its direct course. Not long after, they maneuvered to the left of Fukohan's ship. Several hundred feet apart, they could now see what was happening on the ship. The mast was damaged and the cabin was smashed. Horses were torn to pieces by some unknown beast, their entrails scattered everywhere. The accompanying demon beasts suffered even worse fates. Countless streams of blood flowed from the deck into the water, turning the water around the ship blood-red. The shocking scene caused the three women's pupils to contract. What made their hearts race even more? A horse leg floating in the blood suddenly got pulled down by something unknown, creating huge ripples. Then the water rippled and waves arose. Apparently, something was fighting over the horse leg. Xianxia exclaimed, "Red-scaled, Jiang Fan quickly covered her mouth, then gestured to the stunned Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng to keep quiet. Speaking in a low voice, "The red-scaled evil flood dragon relies on hearing. Don't make any noise. Leave quickly while they haven't noticed us." Chu Xingmeng suppressed her fear, gripping the rudder to keep the ship moving at a steady pace. They watched as they gradually moved away from Fukohan's ship, while the group of red-scaled evil flood dragons swam in the blood around it. Gradually, everyone began to relax. If this continued, they could escape this disaster. However, just as they were about to be safe, a head cautiously emerged from the broken cabin. It was none other than the hiding Fukohan. He saw Jiang Fan's ship and was overjoyed, waving urgently. Qin Ke noticed and exclaimed, "Fukohan is still alive. Should we save them?" Before Jiang Fan could speak, Xianxia firmly said, "Are you crazy? The ship is so damaged. Even Elder Ming Yulian couldn't handle it, and we don't even know if he's alive. If we go, it's suicide." Jiang Fan said coldly, "Keep going, don't stop." If they had been friendlier before. Given that they were all fighting the beast tide, he would have tried to help. But they had nothing but malice towards Jiang Fan. Why should he risk his life to save them? In the ruined cabin, Fukohan watched Jiang Fan's ship sail away without stopping, infuriated. "Dare you leave me to die? Fine. If I die, you won't have peace either." Chapter 260. Chapter 260, Three-Step Drunk, Achieves Great Merit. Chapter 260. Chapter 260, Three-Step Drunk, Achieves Great Merit. He took out a bamboo tube-shaped magic artifact. Aiming at Jiang Fan's ship, he flung it forcefully, whiz with a sharp explosive sound. A jet-black pellet carrying an astonishing resonance rapidly slammed into Jiang Fan's ship. Boom, at the moment of impact. The pellet emitted a tremendous explosion, igniting the ship. The underwater creatures surrounding the damaged ship were immediately drawn by the sound of the explosion. In an instant, the water churned up waves after waves. Faintly visible dark red sinister shadows rushed towards Jiang Fan's ship, looking out. The river's surface appeared to be boiling. The momentum was extremely grand. Fukohan looked at Jiang Fan's increasingly surrounded ship and snorted coldly. "Don't blame me. Who told you not to save me?" He looked down at Ming Yulian lying on the ground, her face pale as paper. At this moment, her right arm had been bitten off, bleeding profusely. Her chest had deep claw marks, revealing her internal organs. "Master, I'll go find someone to save you. Wait here." Chaohun lifted his steps, wanting to take advantage of the red-scaled evil flood dragon being distracted and quickly head to shore. Unexpectedly, he was grabbed by Ming Yulian's ankle, weakly saying, "Don't leave me." Although extremely weak, her mind was still clear. She understood that Chaohun intended to abandon her and escape. Chaohun was anxious and annoyed, thinking Ming Yulian was as good as dead at her age. There was no pity in her dying. But he was a rare talent. How could he die here? However, with Ming Yulian holding onto him tightly, he reluctantly supported her. Quietly untying the spare wooden boat on board, he carefully paddled towards the dock with Ming Yulian. On the other side, Jiang Fan and the others were in grave danger. Countless red-scaled evil flood dragons struck like lightning, crashing into the ship from all directions. Boom! The ship shook violently, almost toppling everyone over. The three women's faces were ashen, panicking and screaming continuously. Fortunately, Jiang Fan remained relatively calm. Issuing orders in quick succession, Chu Xingmeng put out the fire. Qin Ke Yilangsing spread the three-step drunk all over the ship. He leapt onto the mast, observing the situation from above, seeing several 5-zhang-long dark red giant crocodiles faintly visible in the water. They had thick scales and powerful tails covered with barbs. Their yellowish eyes were filled with cruelty. They were clearly the red-scaled evil flood dragons. Moreover, being in their mating season, they were fiercer than usual, currently frantically ramming and biting the ship, trying to sink it. Luckily, they're all juveniles. Jiang Fan observed for a moment, breathing a sigh of relief. If they were mature, their size would be larger than the ship. A single bite could crush the ship. At this moment, Qin Ke fearfully scattered the three-step drunk everywhere, as the medicinal fragrance spread. The red-scaled evil flood dragons in the water were immediately attracted, stopping their attacks and scrambling to climb onto the ship, greedily searching for the three-step drunk. Upon finding it, they slurped it down with their massive mouths and then continued searching. Many red-scaled evil flood dragons even fought each other over the three-step drunk. The three women, terrified, hid in the cabin, not daring to breathe, fearing being discovered by the red-scaled evil flood dragons and having the cabin breached. To their astonishment and joy, just as Jiang Fan predicted, the red-scaled evil flood dragons that consumed the three-step drunk fell unconscious within 3 breaths, lying on the deck motionless. Only a scant few red-scaled evil flood dragons were still searching around. Seeing this, Jiang Fan leapt down, plunging his black sword into the eye of a red-scaled evil flood dragon, straight into its skull. Then he gave it a strong twist. The unconscious red-scaled evil flood dragon died instantly. Seeing this, the three women quickly grasped the method. Drawing out their magic artifacts, they mimicked Jiang Fan's actions by stabbing the red-scaled evil flood dragon's eyes. One after another, the red-scaled evil flood dragons died instantly with a twitch. In no time, the 20+ red-scaled evil flood dragons that climbed onto the ship were all slain. This made the three women ecstatic. Yilangsing exclaimed with surprise, "Junior brother Jiang, what kind of spiritual medicine is that? It's so miraculous." As a disciple of the spirit beast sect, her knowledge of medicines used on spirit beasts far exceeded that of ordinary people. Yet she had never heard of such a miraculous medicine. Such ferocious red-scaled evil flood dragons fell unconscious after consuming just one. Jiang Fan had no time to explain and said, "Drag the corpses back to the cabin and retrieve their materials afterwards. Continue spreading the three-step drunk. There are more red-scaled evil flood dragons." In fact, he was most concerned about the red-scaled evil flood dragon that had left Ming Yulian in a near-death state. If it appeared, this ship would not stand a chance. They must deal with the juvenile red-scaled evil flood dragons before it showed up, or everyone would be in grave danger. Everyone immediately followed his instructions. In no time, the ship was once again covered in three-step drunk. Chu Xingmeng steered the ship towards the dock at full speed. The red-scaled evil flood dragons continued to be lured by the three-step drunk, jumping aboard to feed. As before, they all fell unconscious and were promptly killed with a single stab. This process repeated 5 or 6 times. Finally, the surroundings of the ship became completely calm. No red-scaled evil flood dragons were in sight. On the ship, the deck and cabin were filled with red-scaled evil flood dragon corpses. Blood stained the ship red, with large streams of blood flowing into the river, dyeing half of the river's surface red. Soon, they reached the dock. Jiang Fan finally relaxed his tense heart. The formidable red-scaled evil flood dragon did not pursue for some reason. The three women, having survived the ordeal, hugged each other and cheered. Who could have imagined they would make it ashore alive? But they knew clearly that their narrow escape was not due to luck. It was because Jiang Fan was with them. Without Jiang Fan's command and the efficacy of his three-step drunk, they would have long become food for the red-scaled evil flood dragons. Xianxia gazed at Jiang Fan with shining eyes, unable to help but sigh. I now understand why the sect master favors junior brother Jiang so much. Junior brother Jiang is indeed very captivating, Qin Ke teased. Then you better get in line. There are many girls captivated by junior brother Jiang. Isn't that right, junior sister Chu? Chu Xingmeng blushed, staring with innocent eyes, weakly protesting. Junior sister Qin, talk about yourself. Don't involve me. As for Jiang Fan, who was driving the horses ashore, hearing them tease about him, he snapped. You're all finished with your work, I see. The three women shared a smile and quickly lent a hand. Those driving the carts continued driving. Those dragging the red-scaled evil flood dragon continued dragging. An hour later, they successfully moved everything ashore. Xianxia wiped the sweat off her forehead, looking at the intact convoy and the more than 50 valuable demon beast corpses. Feeling elated, it's finally over. But Jiang Fan said calmly, over? Not yet. His voice turned cold, eyes intently staring towards the dock not far away. Xianxia followed his gaze. Immediately her eyes blazed with anger, because she saw someone who had trapped them, almost leading to their deaths in the river. Chapter 261. Chapter 261 Desires Sect Chief. Chapter 261. Chapter 261 Desires Sect Chief. Fukohan? Xianxia shouted angrily. You bastard! Without another word, she acted immediately. She whistled, and the two spiritual birds in the sky instantly let out a sharp cry. They swooped down towards Fukohan. As they neared, one of them spat yellowish-brown saliva, spraying it all over the unprepared Fukohan. Immediately after, the other spiritual bird flapped its wings, shooting out feathers. Fukohan was in the middle of bandaging Ming Yulian's wound. He was caught off guard. Seeing the feathers shooting towards him, he tried to use his movement technique to escape. But to his shock, he discovered that the yellow-brown saliva stuck to him had sealed his spiritual power, preventing him from using it. Things happened in an instant. While taking off his coat, he lunged forward. Bang, bang, bang. The feathers of the spiritual bird brushed past his shoulder, hitting the ground with explosive force. The pavilion shook violently from the blasts, almost collapsing. The shockwave from the explosion blew him to the ground, leaving him in a sorry state. The two spiritual birds attacked again. Meanwhile, Xianxia coordinated with the spiritual birds and launched her cultivation technique. Fukohan's heart pounded wildly. He had heard that the spiritual beasts of the spirit beast sect's disciples were troublesome, but he hadn't taken it seriously. Only now did he realize how true it was. He, a dignified core formation realm cultivator, had suffered at the hands of a spirit beast sect disciple in the 8th layer of the Foundation establishment realm. Fortunately, before the three attacked, he had managed to remove the robe soaked with the yellow saliva. Once his spiritual power was restored, he immediately showed his fierce side. You dare to attack me. Prepare to be beaten. He grabbed his ancient zither and plucked its strings. Kang! Amid the sharp zither sound that shattered jade and silk, the two spiritual birds were attacked by an invisible force, losing large patches of feathers instantly. They shrieked in pain and fear, flying high into the sky. Xianxia bore the brunt of the attack. Her gown was torn in several places, revealing cuts on her skin. Nevertheless, she continued to charge forward without fear or hesitation. Fukohan snorted through his nostrils. Overestimating yourself? His 10 fingers suddenly exerted force. A zither melody as sharp as iron cavalry clanging and ice rivers shattering immediately blasted Xianxia away. Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng hurriedly caught her. Both glared at Fukohan in anger. Qin Ke angrily said, Fukohan, you despicable scoundrel. You claim to be the chief disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect. Utterly shameless. Fukohan released the zither strings. He looked at Jiang Fan and the others who were unharmed. Then he glanced at the unharmed 1,000-mile eagle. Finally, he noticed the piles of red-scaled evil flood dragons. He couldn't help but show a look of amazement. Not only had they survived, but they had also harvested so many red-scaled evil flood dragons. These dragons were incredibly valuable. Each one's corpse could sell for 1,000 crystal stones. With more than 50 corpses, that amounted to 50,000 crystal stones. In contrast, all his demon beasts had been eaten, and the Great Elder had lost an arm. The stark contrast made it hard for him not to be jealous. Upon hearing Qin Kei's rebuke, he seized the opportunity to lash out. "You still dare to trouble me? I haven't even settled the score with you. If it weren't for your refusal to help, would our Great Elder have lost an arm? You can't escape from this." What? They had thought that framing them was already shameless enough. But they had never imagined that Fukohan was even more shameless than they had thought. He was completely twisting the truth. Jiang Fan drew out his black sword and said coldly, "So, you have your eyes set on these red-scaled evil flood dragons." He wasn't twisting the truth. He was simply looking for an excuse to rob them of their spoils. Exposed, Fukohan no longer bothered to hide his motives. He looked around and saw that the deserted dock was empty. He then sneered, "Good, you know what's up. If you don't want to suffer, hand them over. Consider it a little compensation for offending me." Xianxia hissed in anger, "Shameless scum. You harmed us and now want to rob us." In your dreams, she truly hadn't expected that this famous prodigy of the Heavenly Sound sect would have such poor character. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed it no matter who said it. Fukohan's handsome face showed a sneer. "So what if I harmed you? What's wrong with robbing you? A bunch of nobodies like you, what can you do to me?" Fukohan. He immediately picked up his ancient zither and walked toward the red-scaled evil flood dragons, snorting, "Get out of my way, or else I'll kill all of you and no one will know." What made Fukohan frown was, the three women showed no fear. This place was indeed a deserted dock. There was no one around. If he did something insane, no one would stop him and no one would know. Then he noticed the three women were all looking at Jiang Fan and he sneered, "What, you're counting on this loser?" Jiang Fan twirled his sword and said indifferently, "If I'm a loser, aren't you, my defeated opponent, worse than that?" The humiliating defeat in the music competition was an unprecedented disgrace for Fukohan. Bringing it up again undoubtedly stung him. His eyes darkened. "Do you think learning a bit of sound path technique can make you my Fukohan's equal? Don't forget, you're merely in the foundation establishment realm and I'm a core formation realm expert. How can you compare to me?" Jiang Fan scratched his ear. A look of irritation appeared in his eyes. "You've said similar things countless times. My ears have grown calluses from it. Whether you are as strong as you think, let's find out." Fukohan laughed angrily. "Fine. Since you seek death, don't blame me." He raised his hand, ready to pluck the zither strings and launch a sonic attack. At that moment, the sound of disorderly horse hooves shattered the silence of the deserted dock. In the distance, a column of dust, like a dragon, was heading their way. Before long, they saw the approaching figures clearly. It was a group of handsome men and beautiful women dressed in luxurious clothes. The men were tall and handsome. The women were beautiful and charming. Their clothing was bright and extravagant, leaving a stunning impression. Among the 9 sect disciples, the most attractive ones undoubtedly belonged to the Desire sect. Their identities were apparent. Moreover, they were escorting a long convoy of carriages. They were heading to the dock, ready to cross the new river. Upon their arrival, they immediately noticed the standoff between Jiang Fan and Fukohan. They didn't recognize Jiang Fan. But Fukohan, how could they not recognize him? The tall young man leading the group had a smile in his eyes, saying, "Brother Fu, such a coincidence. We must be fated to meet." "Are you in trouble? Need my help?" Fukohan's face darkened. "Just a minor character not worth mentioning. I can handle it myself. No need for you, Zai Liushu, to meddle." He didn't think this person had good intentions. This man was the chief disciple of the Desire sect, unparalleled in allure and adept at seducing women. One of Fukohan's junior sisters, who had always admired him, was won over by Zai Liushu with a few sweet words and fell madly in love, even giving him her virginity. This had always been a thorn in Fukohan's heart, because he knew Zai Liushu did it intentionally to humiliate him. So when they met again, there was no kind exchange between them. Zai Liushu's gaze, half smiling, then landed on Jiang Fan. He glanced over the three women behind Jiang Fan, a look of amazement in his eyes. "This junior brother is truly fortunate. On a mission with 3 beauties accompanying you. But the one you're facing is the chief disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect. It might be tough for you alone. Why not let me lend you a hand, junior brother?" Jiang Fan frowned. The covetous look Zai Liushu gave at Xianxia and the other two made him uncomfortable. So he said indifferently, Senior brother Zai, I appreciate your kindness, but dealing with Fukohan is enough for me. Zai Liushu and the disciples of the Desire sect behind him exchanged glances, looking surprised. What did he mean by dealing with Fukohan? He was the chief disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect. Even Zai Liushu had to treat him with respect. Who was this person? He dared to speak so boldly. At that moment, a voice with a hint of blame came from the back of the Desire sect convoy. Senior brother, you might not recognize him, but his name must be well known. Chapter 262. Chapter 262, Jai Ryu Unveils the Truth. Chapter 262. Chapter 262, Jai Ryu Unveils the Truth. Zai Liushu's face showed a look of astonishment. I haven't seen him, but I've heard a lot about him. Is there such a person among the 9 sect? He had a wide range of acquaintances. Not only did he often attend gatherings of various sects, but he had also visited the other 8 sects. He had seen all the famous, powerful disciples of each sect. The young man in front of him, daring to confront Fukohan, should not be weak. Yet he seemed very unfamiliar. What was strange was that his junior sister in the sect actually said he must have heard his name. The disciples of the Desire sect also turned their astonished expressions to the speaking junior sister. She was none other than the female disciple of the Desire sect who had attended the auction held in Green Cloud City. Jai Ryu. Later, because she slandered Jiang Fan, she was expelled from the auction house by the vice president of the auction. She held a grudge. Now, encountering Jiang Fan on the territory of the Desire sect, how could she have a good attitude? Jai Ryu rode forward from the end of the team and respectfully said, Big senior brother, this person is a disciple under the Green Cloud sect master. His name is Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan, the disciples of the Desire sect suddenly showed a look of realization. Zai Liushu laughed dryly. So it's him. I was wondering where there could be such a famous disciple I haven't seen before. In a way, he is indeed quite famous. The disciples of the Desire sect smiled. The reputation of having no spirit root was something they had heard so much it was almost deafening. Now they finally saw the person himself. Zai Liushu looked at Xianxia, Chu Xingmeng, and Qin Ke with their different charms. He smiled and said, 3 junior sisters, it's really your good fortune to come here safely. However, you all are now meeting the chief disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect, who is not easy to deal with. Why don't I take care of it for you? To his surprise. The 3 girls remained indifferent without any reaction. Zai Liushu was puzzled, his eyes turned, saying, Aren't you worried about yourselves, or are you not worried about junior brother Jiang Fan? Xianxia showed a look of disgust. She had always despised the male disciples of the Desire sect, coldly saying, Zai Liushu, don't bother us. With junior brother Jiang here, you don't need to worry about our safety. Seeing his intention exposed, Zai Liushu didn't feel embarrassed. Lightly laughing, he spread his hands. All right, I originally wanted to help your junior brother Jiang a bit. Since you don't care about his life or death, I won't interfere. He clasped his hands in his sleeves, smilingly watching the confrontation between Jiang Fan and Fukohan. He knew Fukohan well. Although a natural prodigy, especially in music, he was a prodigy once in 100 years. But because he was a prodigy, his journey had been smooth, and the sect had always protected him. So he rarely faced setbacks. This led to his poor temperament, unable to tolerate a bit of imperfection. If someone provoked him, it was easy for him to target them. In summary, 4 words. Narrow-minded. He didn't know what Jiang Fan did to provoke him, but with Fukohan's character, he would definitely not let him off easily. Let's see what kind of fate Jiang Fan will face. Will these 3 junior sisters ask me to save him? On the side, Jai Ryu arrogantly raised her chin, revealing Jiang Fan's background with ridicule. Senior brother Fu, don't underestimate him. His cultivation may not be great, but his swordsmanship is quite impressive. When he strikes, there will be thunderous explosions. If you're not careful, it's easy to fall for it. Everyone present looked at her. The disciples of the Desire sect naturally said nothing. But the 3 girls, Xianxia, Chu Xingmeng, and Qin Ke were furious. Qin Ke, with the hottest temper, scolded, Shut up. Either do something or be a quiet observer. Revealing someone's weaknesses, what's the meaning of that? Xianxia's face also became cold. Desire sect's disciples have no manners. If your hands are itchy, let's have a match. Chu Xingmeng was worried about Jiang Fan getting hurt. Jai Ryu revealing his background took away a key advantage he had in battle. Even the usually gentle Chu Xingmeng stared angrily at Jai Ryu. You're too much. They're dueling. Aren't you causing harm? Jai Ryu didn't expect the three female disciples from different sects to be so protective of Jiang Fan. She shrank back and moved closer to Zai Liushu. Zai Liushu lightly laughed. What difference does it make? Do you still think junior brother Jiang can win? Ha ha ha. With Zai Liushu's protection, Jai Ryu gained confidence, placing her hands on her thin waist and coldly laughing with a sharp voice. Exactly. If you want Jiang Fan to live, you should beg my big senior brother. If he's in a good mood, Jiang Fan will be spared. The three girls were furious. This woman, so infuriating. Jiang Fan also glanced deeply at her, his eyes cold. I'll deal with you later. Jai Ryu patted her chest, frowning. Oh, I'm so scared. I won't dare. As she spoke, her eyes were full of mockery, causing the disciples of the Desires sect to laugh out loud. His own safety is uncertain, and he's threatening junior sister Jai. Does he think he can survive against Fukohan? Even if Fukohan spares him, can he fight us all? I think not only does he have no spirit root, but also no brains. Jiang Fan ignored them. He looked at Fukohan and slowly raised his black sword. Fukohan chuckled. So your best skill is swordsmanship. Your cultivation is far inferior to mine, and now your secret is out. You still have the courage to raise your sword against me? Fine, for your bravery I'll cut off your arms and let you go. Clang, clang, clang. He quickly strummed the zither strings, emitting overpowering sound waves. Zai Liushu's face changed slightly. He immediately tightened the reins, retreated, and shouted, Everyone retreat! Be careful not to get hurt! No need for his reminder. The disciples of the Desires sect already covered their ears in pain, retreating. Jai Ryu's eyes showed shock. Just the aftermath has such power. The Heavenly Sound sect's cultivation technique is indeed formidable. She couldn't imagine. Facing the sound waves head-on, what kind of harm would it cause? Zai Liushu no longer spoke lightly. His gaze towards Fukohan became serious. Not seeing him for a year, this guy's strength has increased a lot. Before, I wasn't afraid of his sound wave attacks. But now, he didn't continue. But the meaning was clear. It was no longer something he could confront directly. Jai Ryu was shocked. Even big senior brother couldn't handle the sound waves. Then Jiang Fan was. She curved her lips into a look of schadenfreude, eager to see Jiang Fan's miserable state. Just like the day she was chased away by Vice President Chen in front of representatives of various sects, leaving in disgrace. However, when she looked at Jiang Fan, her expression froze. Chapter 263. Chapter 263. Treasure for Life. Chapter 263. Chapter 263. Treasure for Life, only to see Jiang Fan facing the deadly sound waves. No change in expression. He lightly raised the black sword, and before the sound waves arrived, abruptly slashed out a sword. Heaven and earth star fall. It was like a clap of thunder exploding in the ear. The disciples present, each and every one of them, all had their eardrums pierced by the pain. Their ears were filled only with buzzing noises. Jai Ryu, who was already prepared, had sealed her ears with spiritual power. But the moment the sword was swung, that terrifying thunder explosion sound still broke through the layer of spiritual power, causing her ears to ache intensely. Her beautiful eyes widened, revealing a hint of astonishment. His swordsmanship is much more powerful than a month ago? Back when he practiced in the room, the power was already impressive. But compared to now, it was simply negligible. She who was prepared turned out like this. Let alone the others. Just a moment ago, the disciples of the Desires sect who mocked Jiang Fan for overestimating himself were all gasping for breath. The power of this sword, they asked themselves, could not be withstood. Zai Liushu's hand that was holding the reins suddenly tightened, also startled by that terrifying thunder explosion. What swordsmanship is this? The power is so incredible. The extremely powerful thunder explosion sound not only shocked everyone on the scene, it also dispersed the incoming sound waves. Fukohan's fingers playing the zither were also trembling, emitting a few strands of noise. His face showed surprise. What's with your sword move? Although Jai Ryu had reminded him, but he never expected the move's power to be this strong. Jiang Fan said indifferently, Do you think I need to tell you? Fukohan's heart tightened, not daring to underestimate Jiang Fan anymore. Immediately all 10 fingers pressed on the zither strings, plucking rapidly, shouting, Then try my strongest sound path technique, Phoenix Nirvana. In an instant, dozens of sound waves, slicing through the air with a whistling sound, surrounded and swept towards Jiang Fan from all directions. Each sound wave made one's heart sink. There was no doubt they could easily cut off a person's limbs, let alone so many of them. The hearts of the 3 women Xianxia instantly tensed up. Fukohan was exerting his full strength. He grinned maliciously. Let's see how you handle this. His hands never stopped, sending out sound wave after sound wave like a violent storm. Under such a dense attack, who among the same rank could block it? At this moment, Zai Liushu's forehead was already covered in cold sweat. I underestimated him. Jai Ryu also felt the terror within, swallowed her saliva, and said, Senior brother, if it were you, could you win? Zai Liushu gritted his teeth tightly, shaking his head unwillingly. No chance at all. Such a tight and powerful attack could only be warded off if one had a supreme defensive treasure, otherwise defeat is certain. After saying this, he still felt humiliated, making an excuse for himself. But don't talk about me, looking across the nine-sect land, among the same generation, only Xia Caohun and a few other prodigies could withstand this strike. Jai Ryu gasped in surprise. Did Fukohan's full-force attack become so terrifying? Then Jiang Fan was surely doomed. But as she glanced over, she found that Jiang Fan's eyes were calm. He casually waved the black sword, dispersing the approaching sound waves with bursts of thunder explosions. But Fukohan's 10 fingers moved faster and faster. His face showed a sickly satisfaction. Do you know why this piece is called Phoenix Nirvana? Nirvana means rebirth. Once this piece starts, it's endless until the enemy is extinguished by the sound waves. I have never performed it with full strength. You, Jiang Fan, are the first. So you should feel proud even in death. Jiang Fan remained unmoved. He waved the black sword in an orderly manner, unharmed by the sound waves. The other hand discreetly circulated spiritual power. Seeing Jiang Fan still struggling futilely, Fukohan's smile grew more wanton. Your swordsmanship is already useless. Die in despair? Who knew? Jiang Fan said calmly. Who said I only knew swordsmanship? His left hand, charged with spiritual power, suddenly pointed at him through the air. Purple energy comes from the east. Hiss, a purple beam of light like lightning pierced through the air. It struck the ancient Zither in Fukohan's hand. With a loud bang, the ancient Zither exploded on the spot. This powerful purple beam did not lose its momentum, immediately crashing into his chest. Caught off guard, Fukohan was hit in the chest. The whole person was blasted away from his sitting position. Fukohan groaned in pain, looking down at his chest. A finger-thick blood hole was glaringly visible. Looking at the shattered ancient Zither, he couldn't help but feel terrified. This ancient Zither was a rare mid-grade magic artifact. It was actually shattered by Jiang Fan's single-finger technique. If not for it blocking most of the purple beam's power, his heart would have been pierced, dead on the spot. Seeing Jiang Fan shattering the remaining sound waves with the black sword and himself having lost his strongest ancient Zither, his heart trembled. Where would he still dare to fight? He took to his heels and ran. Jiang Fan destroyed the last incoming sound wave and looked up at the fleeing Fukohan. His eyes narrowed. Trying to run? Spiritual power flowed beneath his feet, and his movement technique activated in an instant. In a leap of several zhang. Leaving a shadow in place, he appeared behind Fukohan, feeling the approaching aura behind him. His scalp went numb. He viciously drew a shiny dagger, turning around and stabbing, however. What made his pupils shrink was, Jiang Fan casually extended his palm and grabbed the dagger. With a grip of his 5 fingers, the dagger was deformed. Immediately after, his 5 fingers became a fist, punching Fukohan's arm. Crack, a crisp breaking sound spread across the entire scene. Fukohan was blasted away again, crashing heavily into the stone bench in the pavilion. Hiss! Fukohan, suffering continuous blows, lay on the ground groaning in pain. Jiang Fan carried his sword, walking over unhurriedly, calmly saying, I told you you are not as powerful as you think. Previously, I ignored your provocations. But you kept pushing your luck. He pointed the sword at Fukohan's neck. With just a twist of the wrist, he could slit his throat and take his life. At this moment, Fukohan finally realized he had provoked someone he shouldn't have. This seemingly ordinary Jiang Fan was a highly skilled powerhouse. He suddenly understood why Gong Kei favored Jiang Fan so much. That's because Jiang Fan was extraordinary. Wait, don't kill me, we can discuss this. Faced with death, Fukohan also discarded his pride. He repeatedly bowed and begged for mercy. Jiang Fan remained unmoved, his eyes filled with killing intent. You framed us almost to be buried in the belly of a demon beast, afterwards shamelessly robbed our spoils, and even bullied and injured senior sister Xianxia. Did you ever regret it then? Now you beg for mercy, too late. He immediately twisted his wrist, intending to ruthlessly slit his throat. But at this moment, nearby, the very weak Ming Yulian, struggling to hold on, said, Wait! Young Master Jiang, I will trade a treasure for his life. Chapter 264. Chapter 264 Beast Attack. Chapter 264. Chapter 264 Beast Attack. Jiang Fan stopped. Compared to Fukohan's worthless life, his interest in the treasure was naturally greater. Tell me, what kind of treasure? Don't tell me it's just some crystal stones and pills. I don't care for that. He casually took out a crystal token worth 100,000 and waved it in front of her. Ming Yulian's expression changed slightly, and she awkwardly withdrew her hand from inside her robe. She had actually planned to use some ordinary items to get rid of Jiang Fan. Who would have thought Jiang Fan was so wealthy? It seemed that ordinary items would not move him. If she wanted to save the chief disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect, she had to give it her all. She glanced at Fukohan. Despite his attempt to abandon her alone on the boat just now, making her feel deeply disappointed, he was still the chief disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect, the future hope of their sect. So she could only do her utmost to save him. Gritting her teeth, painfully and reluctantly, she undid the long wooden box strapped to her back and caressed it one last time. Seeing this, Fukohan couldn't help but be shocked. Great Elder, this is your life-bound magical artifact. You're going to give it to him? Selfish as he was, a hint of guilt finally surfaced in his heart. Jiang Fan's brow twitched. The so-called life-bound magical artifact referred to a treasure a strong practitioner relied on, capable of unleashing the majority of their power. From the literal meaning, one could tell it was immensely powerful. As Ming Yulian opened the wooden box, a white ancient zither with a classical air came into view. Each string was as transparent as crystal, evidently made from the tendons of a demon beast in the core formation realm. The zither body was carved from some unknown ancient wood, engraved with superior runes. The entire instrument exuded spirit light, emitting an extraordinary aura. A top-grade magic artifact? Jiang Fan was secretly amazed. Such an artifact was only worthy of the elders and sect masters of the Nine Sect. Disciples had no chance of obtaining it. Ming Yulian, with a face showing intense reluctance, handed it to Jiang Fan. I only ask young Master Jiang to show mercy and spare Fukohan's life. Jiang Fan pondered for a moment and said, All right. However, I need you to write a no-compensation gift letter. If it were someone else's item, he would have just taken it. But Ming Yulian's character made him wary. She was severely injured now and naturally appeared weak. When her wounds healed, if she claimed Jiang Fan had taken her belongings while she was weak, he would be defenseless. And she was a great elder of the Ninth Sect, while Jiang Fan was just a disciple. Where would Jiang Fan seek justice then? What do you mean? Ming Yulian's old eyes widened in anger. Do you think I, an old woman, would go back on my word? In fact, she did have such thoughts in her heart. If she couldn't find a better top-grade ancient zither afterward, she would definitely find ways to get the zither back. She never expected Jiang Fan to be so cautious, guarding against her. Jiang Fan touched Fukohan's neck with the tip of his sword. Just ask if you'll write it or not. Ming Yulian's eye twitched, and she cursed Jiang Fan inwardly. With a gloomy face, she reluctantly dipped her arm in blood and wrote a blood letter on the spot. Only then did Jiang Fan smile. He took both the ancient zither and the blood letter. Are you going to release him now? Ming Yulian stared at Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan smiled. Carrying the ancient zither, he decisively turned around, but he didn't put away his sword. Instead, he looked at Jai Ryu, who had an uneasy look on her face. Seeing Jiang Fan walking towards her, she bit her red lips and forced a smile. Jiang, junior brother Jiang, congratulations on your flawless victory. Jiang Fan walked over unhurriedly and said calmly, Do I have to thank you for revealing my foundation? With that, he slashed through the air with his sword. The powerful sword chi pierced the air, creating a thunderous sound. Zai Liushu, standing to the side, changed his expression and grabbed Jai Ryu, leaping into the air. With a ripping sound, the horse beneath Jai Ryu was split in two. This bloody scene scared Jai Ryu pale, her delicate body trembling. Zai Liushu's expression also changed greatly. He angrily shouted, Jiang Fan, what do you mean by this? Attacking his people in front of him, the chief disciple of the Desire sect. Wasn't this a slap in his face? Jiang Fan said coldly, Isn't my meaning obvious? He stared coldly at Jai Ryu. I never argued with you about all your taunting words in the past. But you didn't repent, became even worse, and now you even disclosed my cultivation technique to the enemy during my fight with a strong adversary. Your heart deserves death. Jai Ryu felt flustered. She deeply regretted it. If she had known Jiang Fan was so powerful, she wouldn't have dared to be so reckless, even with 100 times the courage. Now she was in big trouble. She looked to Zai Liushu for help with a pleading, helpless gaze. "Big senior brother, help me." Zai Liushu also had a headache. Who the hell spread the rumor that Jiang Fan was a good-for-nothing with no spirit root? He could already overpower the chief disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect, not much weaker than him either. Provoking such a strong enemy was troublesome for him as well. But Jai Ryu was his junior sister, and as the chief disciple of the Desire sect, he couldn't just sit idly by. Reluctantly, he continued to defend Jai Ryu, shouting, "Junior brother Jiang, Ryu indeed did something wrong. But she is from my Desire sect. If there is punishment, it should be decided by our sect elders. If you trust me, I will take her back, and she will receive the punishment she deserves. Trust you." Jiang Fan continued walking towards him with an impassive face, a cold light flickering in his eyes. "What if I don't trust you?" Zai Liushu was cornered. There was no way out. At this point, he had no choice but to fight. He glanced at Jiang Fan and the three people behind him, Xianxia and the others. He then considered his own six-man team. Calculating the odds, he felt his side had a better chance of winning, so his eyes flashed as he was about to shout. Suddenly, giant waves surged at the pier. Then a giant blood-red shadow suddenly shot out from the river, biting into the boat that Jiang Fan and the others had boarded, with a cracking sound. The boat was bitten off in one large chunk. The remaining half rapidly sank into the unending turbulent waves. Everyone present was stunned. What is that?" Zai Liushu was dumbfounded. Ming Yulian, however, showed fear and urgently shouted, "Chaohun, run! Quickly run!" Fu Chaohun's face also turned pale, and he helped Ming Yulian flee wildly inland. Nobody knew what they were dealing with better than them. Jiang Fan was also stunned for a moment, then his expression changed dramatically. "It's an adult red-scaled evil flood dragon. Quick, protect our 1,000-mile eagle and get us out of here." There was no time to care about the pile of red-scaled evil flood dragon corpses. At the very least, they had to secure their mission items. The three women, Xianxia and the others, reacted. They quickly mounted their designated horses, swung their whips, and drove their carriages furiously inland. Jiang Fan followed behind the last carriage, guarding the rear. Zai Liushu finally reacted, seeing both sects with such expressions. How could he dare to stay? He hurriedly shouted, "Quick, retreat!" However, they were still a step too late. Chapter 265. Chapter 265, Rejoicing. Chapter 265. Chapter 265, Rejoicing. The waves had yet to settle when a massive crimson shadow reappeared in the bottomless river. It surged out of the water, bringing with it towering waves 10 feet high. A gigantic red-scaled evil flood dragon, as large as a small mountain, leaped onto the shore. Its face was hideous, emitting the terrifying aura of a beast king. Suddenly, its thick nostrils twitched. Its head snapped toward the piles of dead red-scaled evil flood dragons not far away. It immediately opened its massive mouth, letting out an enraged roar. The coarse sound caused Zai Liushu and the others' eardrums to ache terribly. The horses beneath them were frightened, running wildly out of control. One carriage, in particular, plunged into chaos as the horses panicked. The horses ran in different directions, causing the convoy to spin in place, unable to escape quickly. The adult red-scaled evil flood dragon's muddy eyes quickly turned blood-red, emitting a savage gleam. With a powerful push of its legs, its seemingly clumsy and bulky body sprang forward more than a dozen feet, crushing a large portion of the carriages beneath it in an instant. Several disciples of the Desire sect, seeing the danger, abandoned the carriages and fled. The horses were crushed into a mushy pulp. The cargo inside the carriages was also pulverized. Zai Liushu's heart bled. The mission items were completely destroyed, which meant he had failed the primary task he was responsible for. But now was not the time for such thoughts. Feeling the horrifying aura of the gigantic red-scaled evil flood dragon, Zai Liushu shuddered and said, "This is a core formation second-layer demon beast. We need to run." How could they possibly deal with a beast king of this level? Surviving its jaws would already be a great fortune. However, the red-scaled evil flood dragon ignored them. It fixed a vicious gaze on Jiang Fan and the others, because from them it caught the scent of many small red-scaled evil flood dragons' blood, especially from Jiang Fan, whom it smelled the most potent scent. This meant that the ones who killed its offspring were undoubtedly them. With an almost frog-like growl, it leapt forward more than 10 feet again, swiftly pursuing them. Jiang Fan's eyelid twitched slightly. This thing was so ferocious even on land. No wonder Ming Yulian, the great elder, had carelessly lost an arm to it. Seeing the carriages being rapidly overtaken, Jiang Fan halted, saying, "Keep going forward, don't stop." He decisively opened the wooden box, taking out a snowy white ancient zither. This is the first time using a high-grade magical artifact. "Hope it doesn't disappoint me," Jiang Fan murmured softly, planting the zither into the ground. Then he held his breath and centered his mind, his hands suddenly pressing down on the strings. Zai Liushu, watching from a distance, was startled and exclaimed, "Is he crazy? He actually plans to face such a beast king on his own." Jai Ryu stared unblinkingly at the scene. The solitary Jiang Fan against the monstrous creature. The extreme contrast left a tremendous impact on her heart. Is this really the same green cloud sect disciple she once looked down upon? Likewise watching, Ming Yulian couldn't help but frown. He still intends to challenge this beast alone. I even lost an arm to it by accident. Although this beast's power diminished on land, limiting its innate divine abilities. How could Jiang Fan, just a junior, handle it? Yi Liangxing, Qin Ke, and Chu Xingmeng gasped. But with the red-scaled evil flood dragon right behind them, their mission to protect the 1,000-mile eagle left them no room to pause. They could only anxiously glance back. Jiang Fan's solitary, fragile figure stood in stark contrast to the towering, massive body of the red-scaled evil flood dragon. This scene etched deeply into everyone's minds. Visually, it left a profound impression. As the fierce wind swept over him, Jiang Fan remained unmoved. He calmly calculated the distance. When the red-scaled evil flood dragon was only 20 feet away and leapt into the air again, Jiang Fan seized the moment and decisively activated the tiger and dragon roar technique. Clang, the instant he strummed, Jiang Fan sensed something was wrong. In a split second, a whole tenth of his spiritual power was drained. This shocked him. A mid-grade magical artifact typically used no more than 1% of his power, but a high-grade artifact consumed 10 times that amount. However, the unleashed power also startled Jiang Fan. A mountain-shattering roar echoed, shaking all around. The mid-air red-scaled evil flood dragon was torn open by the sonic waves, blood spurting wildly. This was a core formation second-layer beast king, with scales tough as steel. Breaking through them with a mid-grade magical artifact was already challenging. Yet, a single strum easily tore open its flesh. If I unleash my full strength, Jiang Fan's eyes glimmered with anticipation. The red-scaled evil flood dragon crashed to the ground. The blood red in its eyes rapidly faded to a muddy yellow, fear evident in its gaze. It sensed Jiang Fan's danger. But smelling the blood on Jiang Fan, it roared in anger, leaping once more. This Zither's sound, it could barely withstand, not reaching its innards. As long as it killed this human quickly, there wouldn't be a problem. Little did it know. That was just a trial strike. Seeing it bearing down like a mountain, Jiang Fan took a deep breath. He unleashed all his spiritual power, fingers strumming in rapid succession, leaving afterimages. At this moment, the high-grade magical artifact and earth-level mid-grade cultivation technique merged, releasing unprecedented might. Wherever the sonic waves passed, the ground rolled as if plowed by oxen. The surrounding vegetation snapped and flew apart with cracking sounds. Dirt and dust surged into the sky. The scene was far more intense than Gong Kei's Sect Master Hall incident. The mid-air red-scaled evil flood dragon encountered unprecedented sonic wave attacks. Shredding sounds echoed. Its scales split like paper, deep wounds crisscrossing its body. Blood gushed out like springs. The red-scaled evil flood dragon roared in pain, fear flashing in its eyes. Evidently, it realized this sonic attack was terrifyingly powerful. But Jiang Fan was just an arm's length away. Crushing him would turn him into mush. However, it soon regretted it, and it was too late for regret. For with Jiang Fan risking everything, the sonic waves grew more terrifying. Its skin wasn't just cut but burst apart, causing it to howl in pain. Then its eyes experienced searing pain. Frightened, it shut its eyes, trying to protect this weak spot with its eyelid scales. However, in mere moments, piercing pain shot through its eyes. Its scales had burst open. What about its eyelids? Both its eyes were shattered by the sonic waves, and the powerful waves traveled straight to its brain. The mid-air red-scaled evil flood dragon crashed to the ground, writhing in agony. Its massive body shook the ground, raising plumes of dust dozens of feet high. It was like an earthquake. The scene was horrifying. Jiang Fan didn't stop. He ceaselessly sent out sonic attacks until the red-scaled evil flood dragon gradually stopped struggling. Finally, belly up, its body stiffened, motionless. Only then did he cease. In reality, he had no strength to continue. His face was pale, his spiritual power nearly drained. In just 10 breaths, he had exhausted 99% of his power. But the result was pleasing. A core formation second-layer Beast King was slain head-on. Everyone around halted. Their faces showed shock. Zai Liushu discreetly wiped the sweat from his forehead. He felt fortunate that the red-scaled evil flood dragon had interrupted their conflict. Otherwise, Jai Ryu trembled. Staring at Jiang Fan's seemingly frail body, she was filled with deep fear. Helplessly, she said, "Big senior brother, Zai Liushu dared not protect her any longer. He distanced himself from her, saying helplessly, "You must find a way to earn junior brother Jiang's forgiveness. Senior brother can't help you." Chapter 266. Chapter 266 Nascent Soul Great Power Cave Mansion. Chapter 266. Chapter 266 Nascent Soul Great Power Cave Mansion. Are you joking? Charging forward against such a fierce warrior would only be suicide. Although abandoning Jai Ryu would be a disgrace to my reputation as the chief disciple. Losing face is better than losing my life, right? Xianxia and the other two also happily returned, their eyes full of admiration as they looked at Jiang Fan. To be able to kill a Beast King at the second level of core formation in direct combat. This was definitely enough to rank within the top 5 in the 9-sect land. Ming Yulian, supported by Fukohan, also returned, filled with shock. Her old face felt a bit ashamed. She, a dignified great elder, had her arm bitten off by a beast, yet was killed by a junior. How could she face anyone if this got out? Most of this beast's divine skills can only be used in water. Its strength on land is less than 1/10 of that, she commented, unconvinced. Jiang Fan did not deny it. If they were in the river, his fate would not have been much better than the great elders. After all, this beast was elusive in the river. His sound wave cultivation technique would hardly cause any effective damage to it, and it could always bite the boat, causing everyone to fall into the water. If that happened, Jiang Fan's fighting power would be greatly limited. That would be a big problem. What Elder Ming said is true, Jiang Fan replied perfunctorily, but his gaze was already evaluating which parts of the red-scaled evil flood dragon were valuable. The last white crystal beast had brought him quite a bit of treasure. This red-scaled evil flood dragon should be no less valuable. Ming Yulian noticed Jiang Fan's gaze and only then realized the tremendous wealth lying in front of them. Her eyes locked on the giant mouth of the red-scaled evil flood dragon. Her eyes were burning with fiery intent. After all, it had bitten off her arm to protect Fukohan. The teeth in its mouth were undoubtedly the perfect material for crafting high-grade magical artifacts. Their value was extreme. She immediately flashed over to the corpse of the red-scaled evil flood dragon. Seeing this, Xianxia shouted angrily, "Stop! This is junior brother Jiang's spoils of war." She couldn't believe that dignified great elder Ming would shamelessly seize a disciple's spoils of war. She instinctively wanted to rush over, but Jiang Fan grabbed her and exclaimed softly, "Don't go!" Xianxia paused. Turning around, she found that not only was Jiang Fan motionless, but Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng were also warily retreating a few steps. After the incident with the Black Lotus, they had learned a valuable lesson from Jiang Fan. That was to be cautious. The red-scaled evil flood dragon in front of them was both fierce and cunning. They couldn't afford to be careless. Xianxia couldn't help but murmur, "Aren't you all being too cautious? Is the red-scaled evil flood dragon still alive?" While she spoke, Ming Yulian had already flashed to the corpse of the red-scaled evil flood dragon. Looking at the 4 sharp, human-sized teeth in its mouth, her eyes burned with intensity. Obtaining these 4 top-grade magic artifact materials can at least reclaim some interest for my lost arm. She reached out with her other hand, grabbing one of the sharp teeth and yanking forcefully. However, as soon as she exerted force, the seemingly dead red-scaled evil flood dragon's cracked yellow eyes suddenly rolled. A fierce burst of malicious energy erupted abruptly. Its giant mouth snapped shut. Arg! Ming Yulian's arm was instantly bitten. Immediately afterward, the massive body of the red-scaled evil flood dragon rolled over, yanking her arm off with a scream. Ming Yulian was thrown across to the village's grindstone, knocked unconscious on the spot. Thus, the great elder of Heavenly Sound Sect had both arms bitten off. Reduced to being a cripple, the red-scaled evil flood dragon's ferocity remained undiminished. Its shattered eye sockets fixed on Jiang Fan, issuing weak roars of anger. But it could no longer launch an attack. The last strike had been its final exertion. It was meant for Jiang Fan, but unfortunately it was Ming Yulian who had fallen for it. This left it vexed and unwilling. After a few labored breaths, it fell silent. Witnessing all this, Xianxia broke out in a cold sweat, her face going pale. That beast was faking death just now? She held her wildly pounding chest, dry-mouthed. If it hadn't been for Jiang Fan holding her back, her fate would have been the same as Ming Yulian's, or worse. Qin Ke breathed softly with a bit of pride. Senior Sister Yi, now do you understand why we were so cautious? Chu Xingmeng gazed at Jiang Fan with sparkling eyes and nodded slightly. Yes, we all learned this from senior brother Jiang. Xianxia turned to Jiang Fan with immense gratitude. Thank you, junior brother Jiang. You saved my life. Jiang Fan nodded. When you're out and about, a bit more caution never hurts. He then walked over to the corpse of the red-scaled evil flood dragon. Only then did he notice that among the beast's teeth, 4 were human-sized and extremely sharp. Touching them felt exceptionally cold. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Fan forcibly tore out one. He then took out his water bottle and poured water over it. The surface of the tooth immediately gathered thin layers of frost. Concentrating, Jiang Fan infused a bit of spiritual power and slashed it at the body of the red-scaled evil flood dragon. Whoosh! An astonishing scene unfolded as intense cold erupted from the tooth, freezing half of the red-scaled evil flood dragon's body. So the innate divine ability of the red-scaled evil flood dragon resided in its teeth. No wonder Elder Ming wanted to seize the teeth. Jiang Fan couldn't hide his joy. Even without any refining, the power of these teeth rivaled that of a mid-grade magic artifact. If they could find a skilled refining master, they could be turned into high-grade magic artifacts. He didn't hesitate and tore out all 4 teeth. The rest you 3 divide among yourselves. Jiang Fan pocketed the teeth. Now his body was already laden with countless items. He carried 2 swords, slung an ancient zither, and had numerous crystal tokens, spirit pills, and miscellaneous objects on him. And now, 4 human-sized teeth. He had no space left on him at all. So the remaining items had to be divided among the 3 women. The 3 women were delighted and quickly retrieved their preferred parts. This scene made the disciples of the Desires sect envious. That's the corpse of a beast king. Even the cheapest scales can sell for thousands of crystal stones. Not to mention the stomach pouch, beast whip, and beast bones. How did they get so lucky to gain junior brother Jiang's favor? Am I not as beautiful as them? It's really unfair. At this moment, Jiang Fan glanced at the Desires sect and narrowed his eyes, saying, Zai Liushu, shall we continue settling our score? After a moment, some of his spiritual power had recovered. Playing a part of the tiger and dragon roar technique was still possible. Zai Liushu's eyelid twitched as he discreetly pushed Jai Ryu forward. Jai Ryu's face turned pale, and she nervously moved her 3-inch golden lotuses, carefully approaching Jiang Fan. Without waiting for Jiang Fan to speak, she knelt down actively and pleaded, Junior brother Jiang, it was my fault. I apologize. Please show mercy and spare me. Jiang Fan remained unmoved and slowly drew the black sword. He was preparing to strike her once. Of course, it was only to injure her and teach her a lesson. Their task was to escort the 1,000-mile eagle to the Desires sect. Before completing the task, they would definitely not kill the disciples of the Desires sect. Otherwise, it would be hard to account for the task. However, this scared Jai Ryu to death, thinking Jiang Fan was going to kill her. Her face showed anxiety. She turned to see Zai Liushu, who had no intention of helping her. She gritted her teeth, resolved. Junior brother Jiang, I'll exchange a piece of information for my life, okay? Information. What kind of information could be so important that it could save her life? Jiang Fan asked, What information? Jai Ryu spoke quickly. On our way to this place, we discovered a nascent soul great powers cave. What? Jiang Fan's pupils contracted. A nascent soul great powers cave. His breathing immediately hastened. Never had he imagined that the news Jai Ryu would throw out was something capable of causing a major earthquake in the 9-sect land. Where is it? Chapter 267. Chapter 267. Cliff Jump. Chapter 267. Chapter 267. Cliff Jump. Jai Ryu cautiously asked, If I say it, will this matter be settled between us? Jiang Fan raised the black sword, pointed at the red-scaled evil flood dragon that was being divided by the 3 women and said, Not only will it be settled, you will also have a share of the Beast King's body. Provided, of course, you are not lying. What? Jai Ryu was overjoyed. She only wanted to save her life. Who would have thought that Jiang Fan would have an extra reward? As for the nascent soul cave mansion, she knew it was beyond the reach of a Foundation establishment realm disciple like her. Rather than guarding an empty treasure mountain, it was better to exchange it for a life and part of the red-scaled evil flood dragon's body. In any case, she could extract amazing wealth of tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands from the body. She immediately nodded and said, "Of course it's true. Shut up." Zai Liushu was anxious and quickly stopped her, saying, "Junior sister Jai, this is a Desire sect secret. How can you easily disclose it?" Jai Ryu was filled with resentment. When she was in trouble, Zai Liushu abandoned her. Now that she wanted to save herself with a piece of information, she was being stopped. Was she supposed to be stabbed to death? She raised her head high and said, "I found this cave mansion. I can tell whoever I want. Even if the sect master was here, he couldn't say anything to me." She was not valued in the Desire sect anyway. If the sect's top echelons were displeased, it wouldn't hurt her much. Saving her life and getting a share of the red-scaled evil flood dragon's body were things she could really grasp. So she spoke without any concern. "When I passed by a cliff, I accidentally saw treasure light flashing at the bottom. Moreover, there was a rusted hidden chain on the cliff. I climbed down along the chain and saw a cave at the bottom of the cliff. At the entrance of the cave was a broken, glowing stone tablet with the words Nascent Soul Cave Mansion, Keep Out, carved on it. For safety's sake, I didn't dare to go in. I only told senior brother Zai about it." Jiang Fan closely observed Jai Ryu's expression, analyzing the doubts in her words. He found that Jai Ryu did not seem to be lying, and her words contained no flaws. He believed her halfway. "You go ahead and divide the red-scaled evil flood dragon's body first. Take me to that cliff. If I confirm you're not lying, then you're free. Of course, if you are lying, that's another matter." Jai Ryu's face lit up with joy. She quickly stood up, patted the dust off her knees, and swore earnestly, "Not a single word I just said is false." After speaking, she eagerly ran to the red-scaled evil flood dragon's body. She took out various sized bundles and excitedly began to cut the valuable parts. Yi Liangxing and the other two women did not object. Firstly, it was Jiang Fan who hunted it, so the distribution was naturally up to him. Secondly, the red-scaled evil flood dragon was enormous. The three of them couldn't finish dividing it, and having one more person didn't make any difference. The Desire sect disciples watched with envy. As ordinary disciples, they could save only a few hundred crystal stones each year. If they were more frugal, they could barely save 1,000. But now, Jai Ryu, by selling a piece of information, could get anywhere from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of crystal stones. With so many crystal stones, even if Jai Ryu left the Desire sect, she could live a carefree life and enjoy her life. Nobody expected that what was supposed to be a miserable fate for her turned out to be a blessing in disguise. 1 2-hour period later, the four women carried heavy bundles, panting and almost unable to walk. Their faces were filled with joy. It seemed their harvest was significant. There was still a large portion of the red-scaled evil flood dragon left. Though only the meat and bones remained, they were treasures sought after by merchants and could fetch over 10,000 crystal stones. The Desire sect disciples looked at the remaining corpse and couldn't help but swallow. They cautiously looked at Jiang Fan, their eyes pleading. Jiang Fan waved his hand and said without hesitation, "The rest is yours." He could have thrown these into the river. But doing something so harmful and unbeneficial was unnecessary. After his people ate the meat, it was only fair to leave some soup for others. The four Desire sect disciples looked surprised and gratefully clasped their hands, saying, "Thank you, junior brother Jiang. Whenever you come to the Desire sect, I will surely treat you warmly. We owe junior brother Jiang a favor today." The four of them, excited, came forwards and divided the bones and meat before them. Each of them got about 2,000 crystal stones for free. Although it was not as much as Jai Ryu's, to them, it was still a windfall. Zai Liushu looked at the four of them happily, thanking Jiang Fan. He felt both anger and helplessness. A bit of charity made them forget what sect they belonged to, spineless fools. He asked with a stern face, "Junior brother Jiang, do you really want to explore the Nascent Soul Cave Mansion? I advise you to be cautious. The place of a nascent soul great power is not somewhere we can intrude on." Jiang Fan responded with deep meaning, "You don't want me to go in." This made Zai Liushu's expression freeze, and he said nothing more. The group packed up. Jai Ryu sat under Jiang Fan's protection, leading the way to the cliff. Zai Liushu gritted his teeth. His mission had failed, and he had nowhere to go, so he followed them. 2 days later, they crossed a snow-covered mountain and reached its peak. Jai Ryu hurried to the cliff's edge, pointing down, and said, "Here, right here." Jiang Fan followed closely. He looked at the bottomless abyss. Suddenly, a beam of light flashed and disappeared. Was this the treasure light Jai Ryu mentioned? It seemed her words were mostly true. Jiang Fan couldn't wait to go down and looked around, asking, "Where's the chain you mentioned?" Jai Ryu quickly searched. Relying on her memory, she felt around in a pile of snow and found a chain. "I found it." But when she grabbed the chain, her expression froze. Jiang Fan looked over and couldn't help but change his expression as well. The chain was only a segment. The long chain connected to the bottom had broken. Judging from the break, it seemed the chain had been rusted and broken by natural erosion. Jai Ryu panicked. "When I used it last time, it wasn't broken." "Junior brother Jiang, I'm not lying to you." She looked at Jiang Fan with fear, afraid he would misunderstand her intentions. Zai Liushu secretly sighed with relief. His expression relaxed and said, "Junior brother Jiang, this cliff is thousands of feet deep. Even birds can't fly across. It seems you really can't go down. For safety's sake, let's leave." Yilixing, Qin Ke, and Chu Xingmeng all showed regretful expressions. The chain was broken, so going down was impossible. Who knew? Jiang Fan took out a bamboo tube and handed it to Yilixing. He glanced at Zai Liushu and instructed, "Senior Sister Yi, if there's any movement later, fire this smoke bomb under the cliff." "I'll come up immediately." A big question mark appeared on Yilixing's forehead. Before she could understand what he meant, Jiang Fan leaped. Amid Zai Liushu's pupils contracting, the three women's screams, and the Desire's sect disciples' exclamations, he jumped off the cliff. Chapter 268. Chapter 268. The Girl at the Bottom of the Cliff. Chapter 268. Chapter 268. The Girl at the Bottom of the Cliff. This scene was too sudden. It exceeded everyone's expectations. No one expected that Jiang Fan would jump off the cliff. Yilixing screamed and rushed to the edge of the cliff urgently, saying, "Junior brother Jiang." Qin Ke and Chu Xingmeng were terrified, standing still. Zai Liushu was also shocked, hurrying to the edge of the cliff to look down. But who knew? This look made him tremble all over, and he stood there in shock. What is this?" Yilixing was also stunned. Her eyes were wide open, staring down the cliff without blinking. Their unusual actions made the already frightened people curious and apprehensive, moving closer. But at a glance, everyone present had the same reaction. They all looked as if they had seen a ghost. Qin Ke covered her red lips, barely believing her eyes. "Junior brother Jiang flies along the cliff." Chu Xingmeng pinched her arm hard, crying out in pain, and then said in astonishment, "I'm not dreaming. Senior brother Jiang is really flying along the cliff." The Desire's sect disciples looked down and all gasped. How is this possible? How can junior brother Jiang slide along the cliff wall as if walking on flat ground? Finally, after taking a long, deep breath, Zai Liushu said in a trembling voice, "It's movement technique in great success. The legendary art of scaling walls and walking on eaves. Even the 9 sect masters might not reach this realm." Not only the Desire's sect disciples, but even Yilixing and the others were dumbfounded. Jiang Fan also knew a movement technique, and a top-level, very high-level movement technique. They had followed Jiang Fan for quite some time, witnessing many of his methods. They thought they knew him well. Now they realized that Jiang Fan's means were truly endless. Everything he showed was shocking. Damn it! That boy is about to succeed. Zai Liushu came to his senses, slapped his thigh, and complained, "Jai Ryu, this is the chance for our Desire's sect, and you let an outsider take it. Just wait for the sect master's wrath." Hearing the first 2 sentences, Jai Ryu did not care, but hearing the last sentence, she looked suspicious. The sect master, how would she know about this place? At this point, Zai Liushu stopped hiding. He spoke frankly. "A few days ago, I sent this nascent soul cave mansion's information back to the sect via carrier pigeon. I believe the sect master will arrive soon." "What?" Jai Ryu's eyebrows shot up as she screamed. You secretly took all the credit. We agreed to report to the sect master together after completing the task. Yet, you secretly sent the information back alone." Jai Ryu was furious. Such vital information was definitely a great merit once brought back to the sect. When they found the cave mansion, she wanted to send a message to the sect. But Zai Liushu stopped her, saying that such great merit should be reported in person for more rewards. Who knew he did not keep his word at all? He persuaded her not to send a message while secretly taking the credit for himself and sending the message back to the sect. It was simply shameless. Zai Liushu awkwardly scratched his nose, saying, Cough, cough, junior sister Jai, let's think about how to explain it to the sect master. You leak the information to outsiders and let them get ahead. The sect master won't forgive you easily. Jai Ryu's anger dissipated halfway, and panic began to set in. If the sect master came, she would definitely suffer. Suddenly, she looked at the broken chain on the ground, showing suspicion. Is there a chance the sect master has already gone down the cliff? And this chain, maybe she accidentally broke it? After all, it was fine last time I used it. Zai Liushu's face changed. His heart skipped a beat, then he sternly rebuked, "Shut up, are you cursing our sect master? She must still be on her way." Jai Ryu also realized her mistake and hit her mouth. "It was my fault, my fault." This chain's break clearly came from excessive force. If the Desire's sect master really caused it, she must have fallen halfway down. This abyss, it's bottomless. Even though the Desire's sect master was in the late stage of core formation, falling from such a height would kill her instantly, right? Thinking of this, Jai Ryu shivered. She dared not think further. She could only hope that things would be as Zai Liushu said. The sect master was still on her way. Speaking of Jiang Fan, with spiritual power surrounding his feet following the cliff face, he smoothly went down. After a full hour, he finally reached the bottom of the cliff. "It's really high." Jiang Fan shook his ankle, which was slightly sore from walking, and muttered. Then he looked around. He found the surroundings pitch dark. This cliff was surrounded by towering mountains. It never saw sunlight all year round. Even though it was noon, no light could penetrate down. With no other choice, he lit a torch to illuminate the bottom. By the firelight, he found fragments of chains all over the ground. It was evident how high the cliff was, with the iron chains shattered into countless fragments. Suddenly, Jiang Fan saw a stone tablet emitting a faint light. It was exactly as Jai Ryu described, and beside the tablet was a dark cave mouth. His heart pounded wildly. That was the nascent Soul Cave Mansion. He hurried forward, but just 2 steps in, something tripped his foot. Initially, he thought it was a stone, so he did not pay much attention. But soon, Jiang Fan realized something was wrong. Even through his boots, he could feel it was soft. He quickly held up the torch and looked under his foot, then was shocked. There, wrapped in a chain as thick as a person's wrist, was a person. Getting closer, he saw it was a girl in a red dress. Appearing around 18 years old, her skin was fair and smooth. Her features were delicate and defined, combined with a classical oval face, making her look stunning. Her figure was graceful and charming, with elegant curves. She was a beautiful young girl. However, her condition was quite bad. With multiple fractures, her lips had dried blood marks, and her body was covered with a thin layer of snow. Clearly, she had been lying here for some time. Could she have fallen when the chain broke while descending? Jiang Fan analyzed. But how did she know something unusual was down here? After some thought, Jiang Fan touched her neck to check the pulse. He looked surprised. Is her life too tenacious? She's still alive, although her pulse is very weak. These chain fragments everywhere showed that the girl had fallen midway. Falling from such a height, it was amazing she was not dead. It was sheer luck. After some hesitation, Jiang Fan removed the heavy chains covering her, carrying her to a dry corner without snow. He made a fire to warm her. Then, somewhat reluctantly, he took out a revitalizing pill. "I haven't even used it myself. Consider yourself lucky." Jiang Fan put it into the girl's mouth. The revitalizing pill was indeed precious. But as the heir of the undying doctor, he could not bear to see someone die in front of him. He decided to ask for some compensation from her afterward. The revitalizing pill had miraculous effects. After 2 hours, her pulse grew much stronger and her broken bones were almost healed. However, she showed no signs of waking up. Instead, her expression turned painful. Jiang Fan immediately realized the problem. Could she have hidden injuries? Looking at the neatly dressed girl, Jiang Fan scratched his head. He had to undress her to find where the hidden injuries were, but doing so would be an offense. "Ah, life comes first, young lady, please forgive me." Jiang Fan did not hesitate, undoing her collar buttons. But after undoing 2 buttons, revealing her snow-white shoulder blades, the girl suddenly raised her hand, grabbing Jiang Fan's wrist, murmuring, "No, don't." Chapter 269. Chapter 269 Resurrection. Chapter 269. Chapter 269 Resurrection. It seemed that she had some awareness at this moment. She knew Jiang Fan was undressing her. However, she was still unconscious and could not wake up. Jiang Fan shook off her hand impatiently and said, "Do you think I want to do this? Stay still." Then he continued to take off her dress. Although she kept resisting instinctively, her hands had no strength at all. In the end, Jiang Fan stripped off her clothes and thoroughly checked her body. What he found astounded him. Her body was covered in shocking external injuries. There were rusty chain fragments deeply embedded in the flesh of her chest. A long gash ran across her abdomen from a cliff rock, with some gravel stuck in it. Sharp wooden splinters pierced her thighs and abdomen. While a revitalizing pill could heal the wounds, the presence of these foreign objects prevented the wounds from healing quickly. This was why the girl was in such unbearable pain. Jiang Fan carefully removed the foreign objects one by one, cleaned the wounds, and wrapped them with bandages. After confirming there were no more external fragments, he covered her with her dress. Once the revitalizing pill's effect took hold and the wounds healed, the girl would be fine. He placed the girl on the ground. Then, unable to contain his curiosity, he approached the stone stele. In the firelight, the characters, Nascent Soul Cave Mansion, no entry for strangers, were clearly engraved on it. This warning from a nascent soul expert sent chills down Jiang Fan's spine. He cast a hesitant glance at the cave entrance that was just a step away. Nascent soul experts were legendary beings. With a casual strike, they could cause landslides and earthquakes. If the expert had left any traps in the cave, his entry would lead to instant annihilation. He pondered for a long time. Jiang Fan then looked again at the chains scattered on the ground and then at the stone stele. A look of realization flashed in his eyes. Resolutely, he headed towards the cave entrance. The expected danger did not appear. Instead, a stone door blocked his path. The stone door was engraved with characters that Jiang Fan could not recognize at all. "That's strange. What kind of script is this?" Suddenly, a clear and melodious female voice sounded in his ear. "Not script, they're runes." The sudden voice made Jiang Fan's hair stand on end. He instinctively swung his elbow back while shouting, "Who is it?" Thud, Jiang Fan felt his elbow hit something soft. A woman's groan of pain followed immediately. Jiang Fan quickly shone his torchlight over and was stunned. "Why is it you?" It was none other than the unconscious girl in red. She clutched her chest, curled up in the corner, a pained expression on her face, and groaned. "You brat, are you trying to kill me?" Jiang Fan looked embarrassed, hurriedly reaching out with his sword hilt from a distance to help her up. "Sorry. I didn't expect you to wake up so soon." It was indeed strange. Even though the revitalizing pill was effective, it couldn't work this quickly, could it? It could only be said that she had an excellent physique. That was why she woke up so quickly. What puzzled Jiang Fan the most was, how did she come up behind him without him noticing at all? Was he too focused on the inscriptions on the stone door? The girl in red angrily slapped away his sword hilt and bit her silver teeth, saying, "I don't need your help. You have no sincerity at all." Jiang Fan touched his nose, withdrew his sword, and said, "How should I know if you're good or evil? Keeping some distance just in case." The girl in red tightened her fists in anger. Right, you're a good person. Stripped me naked and checked every inch of my body, such a good person." This, it seemed she did have some awareness earlier. Jiang Fan coughed dryly and said, "Desperate times call for desperate measures. I meant no harm." The girl in red rubbed her still aching chest and said angrily, "If you hadn't saved me, I would have chopped you in half already." Jiang Fan was speechless. This girl was truly ungrateful. He saved her life, but she didn't thank him at all and had such a bad attitude. He was too lazy to argue with her and continued to examine the runes on the stone door. The girl in red walked over, glanced at the runes on the stone door, and said, "These are array runes. You need to be proficient in arrays to open this. Move aside, I'll break the array." Oh, arrays. This art was quite complex and esoteric. It would require at least 10 years of research to achieve any proficiency. How old was this girl anyway? Could she understand arrays? The girl in red stood in front of the stone door, and as she pointed at different runes, she said in an old-fashioned manner, "I don't like owing people favors. Once we get inside, I'll let you pick one thing first." Jiang Fan chuckled. How strong could she be at such a young age? She just recovered from her injuries. She shouldn't have much strength left. Why would he need her consent to take whatever he wanted? However, she wasn't as bad as he had imagined. At least she knew how to be grateful. He casually nodded, "Fine, consider it the consultation fee." The girl in red rolled her eyes and asked seemingly casually, "How did you treat my injuries just now?" She was well aware of her own injuries. Multiple broken bones and external wounds were minor compared to the severe internal injuries to her organs. She thought she was a goner. Miraculously, she was saved by this young man in front of her. She was very curious about how he did it. Jiang Fan could tell that she was trying to probe about the revitalizing pill. This wasn't something he could casually talk about. So he replied with a blank expression, first this, then that, and it was done. The girl in red turned her head and glared at him. You're young, but even more cunning than an 80-year-old man. It was clearly a young man standing before her. Yet dealing with him was rather exhausting. Jiang Fan rolled his eyes. As if you're any older. The girl in red retorted angrily. I am? She wanted to reveal her identity but reconsidered, thinking that it might bring unnecessary trouble since her injuries hadn't fully healed. So she huffed instead, mind your own business. Right, my name is Yue Mingzhu, what's yours? Yue Mingzhu. Jiang Fan couldn't help but recite, in the sea of Canghai the moon's pearl weeps. That's quite a poetic name. I'm Jiang Fan. Yue Mingzhu snickered, Jiang Fan. That's such a plain name. Jiang Fan's face tightened. He snorted, stop talking nonsense, can you unlock it or not? This unpleasant girl. With a confident smile, Yue Mingzhu said, piece of cake. She then quickly moved her hands, touching different runes in a specific sequence. Jiang Fan leaned against the stone wall, studying the surroundings of the stone door, and said thoughtfully, when the stone door opens, be careful of mechanisms. Yue Mingzhu raised an eyebrow. Aren't you being overly cautious? This cave mansion has existed for at least 100 years. Any mechanism inside should have corroded and become non-functional. As soon as she finished, her finger pressed the last rune. With a crack, the stone door immediately started to rumble open. Jiang Fan's expression changed. He swiftly pulled Yue Mingzhu into his arms and pressed her against the wall. Yue Mingzhu, suddenly trapped against the wall by a broad chest, stomped her foot in embarrassment and anger. You presumptuous! But at that moment, from the opening stone door, came the sound of mechanical grinding. Chapter 270. Chapter 270, Educating the Desire Sect Master. Chapter 270. Chapter 270, Educating the Desire Sect Master. Immediately, the whistling sound of arrows breaking through the air arose. Countless poisoned crossbow arrows were shot out like raindrops. Landing in the snow outside the cave, they immediately corroded the white snow into a pitch-black color. Because the two of them were pressed against the stone wall, most of the crossbow arrows brushed past them. Only one arrow hit Jiang Fan's waist. Yue Mingzhu finally realized that Jiang Fan was saving her. Looking at the large area of corroded snow outside, she was filled with fear. Then she looked at Jiang Fan, who was very close, and felt deeply apologetic. Just now, I misunderstood you. Jiang Fan confirmed there were no more traps and then released her. He forcefully pulled out the crossbow arrow from his waist. Lifting his robe to look, the silver-white protective armor he was wearing had been corroded into a dent by the arrowhead. It nearly penetrated through and reached his skin. Seeing this, Yue Mingzhu felt even more guilty and her face turned red. Thank you for saving me. Jiang Fan poked her forehead with an angry expression, saying in a teaching tone, What did your elders teach you? You have no sense of alertness at all. Yue Mingzhu covered her forehead, her eyes wide open. You dare to poke me and even scold me. I am the dignified. She stopped herself in time. She almost revealed her identity. You're still not convinced? Jiang Fan became angry, prying her hand away and poking her forehead again. Fortunately, it was just crossbow arrows earlier. What if it was quicksand, poisonous gas, or explosive jade talismans? We would have both died here. Yue Mingzhu was so angry that she was breathing heavily through her nose. This scoundrel, how dare he? Is he addicted to lecturing me? She said angrily, how would I know that the traps in such an old cave mansion were still intact? Still talking back. Jiang Fan poked her forehead again. Use your brain. Nascent soul cultivators can float in the air. Why would they need to climb with iron chains? Yue Mingzhu, who had looked imposing, froze in place. That question left her stumped. Also, do you think the warning on the stone tablet at the entrance was left by a nascent soul cultivator? With a wave of his hand, he could use countless methods to prevent outsiders from entering. Why would he need to set up a sign to warn others? Jiang Fan tapped her on the head, speaking crossly. Yue Mingzhu felt a guilty conscience stirring within her. She had only focused on the fact that there was a nascent soul cave mansion here, making her overlook these details. What kind of existence were nascent soul cultivators? In their eyes, core formation realm cultivators were like ants. Did he need to set up a stone tablet to warn ants? And considering the iron chains, it sounded more like someone had discovered this nascent soul cave mansion. To monopolize this place, they set up a tablet to scare people away. And that person, in order to keep others from exploring, naturally set up traps inside the cave. Thinking of this, Yue Mingzhu felt a bit embarrassed. She, after all, had failed to see as clearly as a young boy. Jiang Fan, with a long face, asked, Do you acknowledge your mistake? Yue Mingzhu, feeling a bit guilty, replied. Yes, I do. Her face turned red. Now she absolutely refused to reveal her identity, even under threat of death. She, the dignified sect master of the Desire sect, had been scolded by a junior, and the scolding made perfect sense. If this got out, she would be utterly humiliated. Seeing that she had finally yielded, Jiang Fan dared to enter the cave with her. Otherwise, who knew what would happen if she didn't listen again and triggered some mechanism or trap? Without my orders, don't touch anything inside. Jiang Fan's expression softened a little as he reminded her. Yue Mingzhu chuckled wryly. I understand. Thus, the two of them entered the cave, sealed for who knew how many ages, one after the other. As soon as they entered, Jiang Fan immediately noticed a finely crafted crossbow bed. It was this crossbow bed that had been activated earlier, shooting over 50 poison crossbow arrows. What startled Jiang Fan was, at the other end of the crossbow bed there lay a dried corpse. Judging from the age, the person must have died 20 or 30 years ago. Jiang Fan thought, this person must be the one who occupied this cave mansion. Even at death, they lay by the crossbow bed, unwilling for outsiders to enter. Such a strong possessiveness. Suddenly, Jiang Fan noticed that in the right palm of the dried corpse there was a bamboo slip. On an exposed corner, the words Earth-level technique could faintly be seen. Yue Mingzhu also noticed it, and her pupils contracted. But she did not act rashly. Jiang Fan turned his head and said in surprise, Oh, you're not stupid. Yue Mingzhu's mouth twitched. Outside the stone door, she had only been careless. It wasn't that she had no experience. Did he really think she was some naive young girl? She said wryly, It's clearly a trap. Such an important Earth-level cultivation technique, how could it be casually held in one's hand? Moreover, it just so happens that the words Earth-level technique are exposed. Isn't it just to lure someone into a trap? Jiang Fan nodded, showing an approving expression. You've made progress. Yue Mingzhu rolled her eyes. Thank you for your compliment. With that, she bypassed the crossbow bed and approached the dried corpse. She carefully squatted down, her gaze fixed on the bamboo slip. She quickly noticed a thin steel wire, one end attached to the bamboo slip, the other end under the dried corpse's foot. Lying on the ground, she looked through the gap under the foot. She snickered. As expected, it's an explosion talisman. Anyone who tries to take the bamboo slip will pull the steel wire, triggering the talisman. Then the entire cave mansion would collapse. Anyone who entered would be buried with him. Such a wicked mind. Jiang Fan showed a hint of admiration in his eyes. This girl had a strong sense of perceptiveness. He seemed to have underestimated her. What surprised Jiang Fan even more was the girl's rich and decisive expertise in handling such traps. She held the steel wire in one hand, preventing the explosion talisman from being triggered. With the other hand, she casually sent the dried corpse flying, crashing against the stone wall and shattering into pieces. Thus, the explosion talisman was revealed. It's actually an explosive jade talisman equivalent to a strike from the 9th layer of core formation. Yue Mingzhu, seeing the true nature of the talisman, had a look of excitement on her delicate face. She hurriedly cut the steel wire, deactivating the talisman. Her face was full of joy. An explosive jade talisman of the 9th layer of core formation level would be difficult for any sect master in the 9th sect to defend against. Having this was equivalent to possessing a lethal weapon. Jiang Fan, give this to me and you can choose the next 2 items. How about that? Yue Mingzhu, cherishing the jade talisman, looked at Jiang Fan with a negotiating gaze. Originally, she had promised that Jiang Fan would get the first pick upon entering, but now she ended up claiming the first treasure for herself, feeling a bit embarrassed. No problem, Jiang Fan readily agreed. One of these deterrent talismans was enough. Having more would be of no added value. Moreover, among the talismans in his hand, the nascent Soul Strike talisman was worth multiple times more than this simple explosive talisman. Being able to exchange it for the next 2 magical treasures was undoubtedly advantageous. Suddenly, the corner of Jiang Fan's eye caught a glimpse of a faint green light. Turning to look, he saw it emanating from the shattered, dried corpse, its abdomen vaguely glowing through the dry skin. Jiang Fan's heart skipped a beat. This person who saw the treasures in the cave as their lifeblood wouldn't want anyone else to possess them even in death. So where would they hide the treasure before dying? Staring at that green light within the abdomen, his heart pounded. Chapter 271. Chapter 271, A Taizro Schemes. Chapter 271. Chapter 271, A Taizro Schemes, no doubt about it. Swallowing it into the stomach is the best way to hide it. because no one would think someone would be so greedy, swallowing the treasure into their stomach even after death. This is most likely the most valuable treasure in this entire cave. He was so excited that he wanted to go forward, but he forcefully restrained himself, because Yue Mingzhu was right beside him. Any movement and Yue Mingzhu would notice. At that point, how to divide the treasure would become a problem again. He really did not want to fight with others for the treasure, so he pondered for a moment. He quietly patted the small Qilin sleeping soundly inside his wide robe. Is it meal time? Is it meal time? The little Qilin's nose began to sniff even before its eyes were open. Jiang Fan grumbled in his mind, "Eat, eat, eat, all you know is to eat. Get up and work for me." The little Qilin reluctantly climbed up, rubbing its sleepy eyes with its little short legs, muttering, "No grass for the horse, yet expect the horse to run." Jiang Fan snorted lightly, "Get that thing and I'll make 10 top-grade spirit pills for you afterward." "What?" The little Qilin's eyes immediately widened, shining brightly. Jiang Fan rolled his eyes, "Now you're awake?" The little Qilin rubbed its furry little paws, grinning, "Spirit pills or not doesn't matter. The main thing is I love to help out. Cut it out. Since when did this guy become so glib-tongued?" Jiang Fan impatiently pulled open a corner of his robe, giving the little Qilin a peek. Then he transmitted a message in his mind, "See the green light in that corpse? Retrieve it." The little Qilin's eyes glanced over, locked onto the target, and said, "Piece of cake." But just as the little Qilin was about to use its instantaneous movement ability to bring it over from afar, Yue Mingzhu, ever so meticulous, also noticed the green light. She beamed with delight. She clearly realized that what this person swallowed into his stomach before dying was definitely not an ordinary item. Glancing at Jiang Fan from the corner of her eye, she didn't make a noise. Instead, she looked around casually, then nonchalantly moved closer to the corpse, preparing to quietly extract the green light while Jiang Fan wasn't paying attention. Jiang Fan thought to himself, "Not good." He immediately ordered the little Qilin, "Hurry!" The little Qilin instantly grasped the green light from a distance. A small, furry paw contained something now. Noticing the green glow in the abdomen had disappeared, Jiang Fan knew the little Qilin had succeeded. He quietly closed his robe. Pretending nothing had happened, he looked around. Seeing Jiang Fan had no reaction to her movements, Yue Mingzhu pouted, "Fool! A great treasure right in front of you and you didn't even notice. And yet you have the nerve to scold me." She seemingly casually walked to the desiccated corpse. Seizing the moment when Jiang Fan turned his back to her, she decisively reached into the corpse's abdomen and grabbed. Only to grab a handful of dust. She was stunned. She remembered the exact location of the green light. Her grab was very accurate. How could it be empty? Realizing Jiang Fan hadn't turned back, she quickly made several more grabs. But after cleaning out the entire abdomen, she still couldn't find the source of the green light. "What are you looking for?" Jiang Fan suppressed the corners of his mouth from curling up, pretending to be very puzzled. "Is there some treasure in this desiccated corpse?" Yue Mingzhu panicked slightly, hurriedly covering up. "No, nothing. I just wanted to see if there was something hidden in the corpse's stomach." Jiang Fan looked at Yue Mingzhu's dirty hand with a disdainful expression. "Why not just crush the corpse underfoot? Why use your hand to dig it out?" Yue Mingzhu then realized her hand was stained with sticky liquid and felt sick. She quickly took out a handkerchief and wiped her hand, feeling a bit annoyed inside. "If not for the fear of this brat finding out, I wouldn't have used my hand to dig. Honestly, as the sect master, wouldn't it be better to directly take what I want? How did I end up in this sneaky situation?" While blaming herself inwardly, she didn't actually assert her seniority to grab it. For a simple reason. She owed Jiang Fan her life. If not for Jiang Fan's miraculous appearance and saving her, there wouldn't be this opportunity to explore the cave now. So she was willing to share the cave's treasures with Jiang Fan, this junior. Suppressing his laughter, Jiang Fan walked forward and crushed the desiccated corpse underfoot, saying, "There's nothing inside." Yue Mingzhu didn't believe it. Turning it inside out, even the bone fragments weren't spared, but still she found nothing. She muttered, "Strange, I clearly saw a green glow. Why is it gone? Was I seeing things?" Jiang Fan chuckled inwardly. "You weren't seeing things. Someone's tricks are just better than yours." Jiang Fan realized something. This young woman's mind wasn't just ordinarily devious, appearing pure and lovely, yet in reality very cunning. If he hadn't discovered it first, the treasure would have most likely been secretly taken by her. "Maybe your injury hasn't healed, affecting your vision," Jiang Fan said from the side. Yue Mingzhu pondered for a while, thinking she might have indeed made a mistake, finally giving up reluctantly, "Perhaps." Let's go take a look inside. This cave doesn't seem very deep. Jiang Fan nodded. In fact, he already saw the end. After walking about 20 steps, they arrived at a stone wall. It resembled a living room with stone tables and chairs. There was a teapot on the table. Yue Mingzhu excitedly opened the lid, only to find decayed spiritual tea leaves turned to dust. Several small bugs crawled around inside. She threw it away in disappointment, muttering, even as a nascent soul great power, still using ordinary porcelain. Isn't it beneath their dignity? Jiang Fan was speechless. Breaking into someone's cave and stealing their things, yet complaining about their stuff not being good enough. There's no one quite like this. Suddenly, Jiang Fan noticed stone doors on both sides of the wall. His eyes lit up. Yue Mingzhu noticed too and showed a look of delight. But she didn't rush to open the doors. Instead, she grabbed some stones, preparing to break the stone doors open. Unexpectedly, Jiang Fan said, "You move back a bit." Yue Mingzhu looked at Jiang Fan preparing to use a cultivation technique to attack the stone doors and smiled. A junior daring to show off in front of her the Desire's sect master. Fine then, let him try. It would also let her see how skilled this brat really was. If he was too weak, she could give him some pills and cultivation techniques before they part ways. If he reached Foundation Establishment's second or third layer, she would consider accepting him into the Desire's sect. If he could reach Foundation Establishment's sixth layer or above, she could personally take him as a disciple and train him diligently, as a true way to repay him for saving her life. As for his power being even higher, Yue Mingzhu didn't even consider it. This young man looked only 18, the age of a new disciple in any sect. Such a disciple, him reaching the Foundation Establishment's sixth layer, would already be rare. Higher was impossible. Besides, Jiang Fan was thin, with skin better than a woman's, clearly pampered and not one to endure hardship. One punch from her and he'd probably be whimpering on the ground. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but tease, "You've got to use a bit of force. These stone doors are thick. Don't end up flying backward yourself instead of opening the door." Jiang Fan gave her a white-eye look. He gathered his spiritual power and channeled it to his right index finger. Spiritual power of the Foundation Establishment, 8th layer, suddenly appeared. Yue Mingzhu's body shook, her smile froze, and she exclaimed in disbelief, "You've reached the Foundation Establishment 8th layer. How is that possible?" Chapter 272. Chapter 272 Demons, Chapter 272. Chapter 272 Demons in any sect, reaching the 8th layer of Foundation Establishment, was considered top-tier elite disciple level. Moreover, he was only 18 years old. The last time someone this prodigious appeared was Xianxia Cultivation of the Supreme Sect. What was the story with this young man in front of her? How did falling off a cliff make her bump into such a heaven-defying prodigy? Her view of Jiang Fan underwent a complete reversal in an instant. This person wasn't just skilled in medical arts. He was actually an unparalleled prodigy. Where did he come from? It made no sense. She didn't know about such an extraordinary prodigy while her thoughts were racing. Jiang Fan had already started to unleash his technique. Purple energy comes from the east. A dazzling beam of purple light shot out instantly. With tremendous explosive power, it suddenly blasted at the stone door. With a loud bang, the stone door was punched through, creating a hole the size of a fist. Unable to withstand the aftershock, it collapsed, filling the room with dust. Yue Mingzhu was stunned once again. An earth-level finger technique? Her hands, which had been crossed in front of her chest, unconsciously fell, covering her red lips as her eyes widened. Earth-level cultivation techniques weren't extinct on the 9-sect land. Some sects had remnants of Earth-level techniques. They might even possess complete Earth-level techniques. However, comprehending an Earth-level technique was absolutely measured in years. Without several years or even a decade of immersion, it was almost impossible to successfully master one. 18 years old and already proficient in an Earth-level technique. Jiang Fan was definitely the first. He was not only skilled in medicine, but also exceptionally talented in martial arts. Even his comprehension ability was extraordinary. Yue Mingzhu was dumbfounded. Since when did such an extraordinary talent emerge on the 9-sect land? She couldn't help but ask, "Is your name really Jiang Fan?" She suspected it was a fake name. How could such an outstanding prodigy escape her notice as a sect master? But she had never heard of the name Jiang Fan. Wait a minute. There was a disciple in the Green Cloud sect named Jiang Fan. However, his reputation wasn't good. The Jiang Fan in front of her was completely different. Jiang Fan couldn't be bothered to respond to her. Waving away the dust in front of him, he fixed his gaze on the secret chamber ahead and said, "There are no traps. Also, this looks like a secluded meditation chamber." Jiang Fan walked in, finding the secret chamber empty. The only thing on the ground was a grass mat crumbled into dust. Yue Mingzhu suppressed her astonishment at Jiang Fan and quickly stepped forward to take a look, finding nothing. She pouted. With one swift kick, she smashed the mat into pieces. What kind of nascent soul great cultivator is this, leaving behind nothing but dust? Jiang Fan sighed as well. Just as he was about to turn and leave, a faint footprint appeared on the wall due to the dust filling the air. There's a footprint here. Wait, there's something within the footprint. Yue Mingzhu noticed the anomaly too and hurried over for a closer look. Upon close inspection, they found that the patterns in the footprint were actually tiny, grain-sized characters. Yue Mingzhu strained her eyes, starting to feel dizzy. What are these words? Not only are they tiny, but looking at them is also exhausting. After a while, she still couldn't make out many of the characters. However, Jiang Fan's eyes lit up. These are characters engraved using soul power. This nascent soul great cultivator was practicing soul power, casually engraving a cultivation technique. Jiang Fan was very familiar with this. In the wooden box left by his father, there was a book called Taiyin Soul Technique. All the characters on it were engraved with soul power and could only be viewed using soul power. Otherwise, they were unreadable. Really. Yue Mingzhu rubbed her temples and then unexpectedly reacted. How do you know? If she couldn't see it, how could Jiang Fan? Could it be that he was also a soul master? This couldn't be. Absolutely not. Not to mention the 9-sect land. Even the heavenly mechanism pavilion might not be able to find someone with as many talents as Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan ignored her. He stared unblinkingly at the cultivation technique on the wall. After carefully examining it, he showed an excited expression and said, "This is a leg technique, and it is of mid-tier earth level." What? Yue Mingzhu's eyes widened in surprise, and she held her breath. Are you sure? Mid-tier earth-level techniques were considered top secrets even in the heavenly mechanism pavilion. Only the palace master could cultivate them. Jiang Fan said joyfully, "Absolutely. This nascent soul predecessor, by casually practicing soul power, left behind such an astonishing cultivation technique. It's hard to imagine the depth of his strength." Yue Mingzhu got excited too and asked, "Can you share this technique with me?" She felt a bit embarrassed. The technique was right in front of her, but as a sect master, she couldn't comprehend it and had to ask a junior for it. Really, she couldn't afford to let anyone know her identity as the Desire's sect master. She couldn't lose face like this. Without hesitation, Jiang Fan took out paper and pen and wrote it down on the spot. Had it not been for this woman decoding the runes on the stone door, he wouldn't have had access to the treasures inside. Sharing a technique was no big deal. Yue Mingzhu took it excitedly. Just reading the first few lines, she could sense the profoundness of the leg technique and joyfully said, "No mistake, it is indeed a mid-tier earth-level technique." However, when she read the introduction, her smile froze. To cultivate this technique, one must first master a movement technique. This leg technique emphasized speed. Without a foundation in movement techniques, mastering even the first layer would be difficult. What about the later stages? Yue Mingzhu gritted her teeth in frustration. If I had mastered a movement technique, why would I bother with this useless leg technique? She felt tricked. Mastering a movement technique was harder than mastering an earth-level technique. This leg technique actually required a foundation in movement technique, completely backward. Take it back. Yue Mingzhu angrily threw the technique back to Jiang Fan. I advise you not to practice it either. By the time you master a movement technique, you could have practiced 2 earth-level techniques. It's a waste of time. Jiang Fan touched his nose. A movement technique, he knew that. Moreover, he could barely count himself as proficient, right? With a wasted expression, Yue Mingzhu unhappily left the secret chamber. She arrived in front of another secret chamber. She angrily kicked the stone door. Bam, the stone door flew open instantly. Jiang Fan's pupils contracted. Wait, what was that about? He had used an earth-level finger technique, exerting all his spiritual power to open the stone door. Yue Mingzhu hadn't even used much spiritual power, and she kicked the stone door open. At that moment, Yue Mingzhu realized something. She might have exposed her strength. She rolled her eyes and turned to say, "Don't be surprised, I practice body techniques." Body techniques? Jiang Fan pondered. Even if it was body techniques, it was astonishing. He couldn't have kicked open the stone door even if he activated the Phoenix Blood treasure body. Yue Mingzhu looked like she was around his age, but her body technique was actually superior to his. Truly, there was always a higher mountain, and there were always people greater than oneself. He nodded and said, "We should exchange our experiences sometime." Yue Mingzhu nodded guiltily, but then she showed a puzzled expression. "Exchange experiences? What experiences?" Chapter 273. Chapter 273, The Astonishing Appearance of a Spiritual Artifact. Chapter 273. Chapter 273, The Astonishing Appearance of a Spiritual Artifact. Jiang Fan was asked in bafflement. "Of course, it's my insights on body techniques." "Aren't you cultivating body techniques?" Yue Mingzhu's eyes widened. "You are also skilled in body techniques." "Is that a joke?" Jiang Fan's cultivation realm had already left his peers far behind. It was evident that he must have poured all his energy into this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have achieved his current success. Where did he find the energy to also focus on body techniques? Even Zia Kao, such an extraordinary prodigy, wouldn't dare to do that, right? Jiang Fan was speechless. What's there to be fake about? He raised his fist and casually punched the stone wall next to him. Boom! The secret chamber trembled slightly and a large amount of dust fell. Where he punched, there was a 3-inch deep fist imprint. Yue Mingzhu's eyes almost popped out in shock. This punch was comparable to someone at the first level of core formation. Even the elite disciples of the giant sect might not have such power. Moreover, it was obvious that Jiang Fan had just casually punched, without exerting his full strength. If he went all out with his body techniques, even the chief disciple of the giant sect might not be able to match him. She stared at Jiang Fan dumbfounded, wondering if she had hallucinated after falling off the cliff. How could there be such a monstrous prodigy in this world? Not only dual cultivation in both body and magic techniques, but they were also at the pinnacle in the 9-sect land. Just being the best in those was one thing, but also excelling in medical skills and comprehension. Does such a person really exist? Seeing Yue Mingzhu's bizarre expression, Jiang Fan muttered, "These body techniques shouldn't be as good as yours." "No need to be so surprised, right?" "Can I not be surprised?" Yue Mingzhu came back to her senses, not knowing how to respond for a moment. The punch she threw just now was because of her physique as a late-stage core formation expert, not from specialized cultivation. How would she know anything about body techniques? She casually said, "We should exchange insights on body techniques when we have time. Let's quickly check what this secret chamber is." She didn't want to communicate with Jiang Fan anymore, fearing that he'd reveal another talent she couldn't comprehend. Jiang Fan also walked over curiously. Looking into the secret chamber, they saw several wooden racks. They were covered with dusty bottles and jars. In the center of the chamber, there was also a dusty pill furnace, whose color was indiscernible. Jiang Fan recognized it at a glance and exclaimed, "This is an alchemy room? This nascent soul great power was indeed a soul master." This confirmed his judgment about the footprint. It was the trace left from practicing soul power. The owner of this cave mansion was really a nascent soul master. Alchemy room? Yue Mingzhu's eyes lit up and she immediately rushed to the racks, scavenging the bottles and jars. Jiang Fan had no interest in this. He walked directly to the pill furnace. He swept off the thick dust, revealing the true form of the pill furnace. It was a pill furnace engraved with 9 dragons, covered with special patterns. The material was extremely unique. Despite being eroded by centuries of time, it remained as good as new without any traces of rust. His heart moved, and he attempted to infuse a strand of spiritual power into it. The pitch-black pill furnace immediately trembled, emitting an exceptionally strong spiritual pressure. Yue Mingzhu, who was scavenging the bottles and jars, was startled and turned her head in horror. "This is a spiritual artifact?" Not too sure, she walked over and placed her palm on the pill furnace. But as soon as she put her hand on it, a startling spiritual pressure flung her hand away. She showed a look of ecstasy. "That's right, it's a spiritual artifact. Such an astonishing spiritual pressure can only come from a spiritual artifact. I actually got to see a spiritual artifact with my own eyes." Her eyes trembled, filled with immense eagerness, until Jiang Fan interrupted her. "Do you need this item?" Yue Mingzhu's expression immediately froze. Only a soul master would use a pill furnace. For everyone else, it was as good as scrap metal. This drove Yue Mingzhu crazy, and she angrily kicked the pill furnace. "It would be great if you were a sword or at least some other weapon. But you're a pill furnace, the most useless thing. This is outrageous. Yue Mingzhu will never coexist with soul masters." She was truly infuriated. For the first time in her life, she encountered a legendary spiritual artifact, but it turned out to be a pill furnace she could not use. Who wouldn't go crazy over this? Jiang Fan secretly chuckled. Can't have it, so you curse the soul masters. How pathetic. Just right, Jiang Fan still didn't have a dedicated alchemy furnace. He wouldn't hesitate to take this pill furnace. He stepped forward and grabbed the furnace, attempting to lift it. However, he was stunned. The pill furnace didn't move an inch. So heavy. Jiang Fan was surprised and used the power of his physique. But the pill furnace was like a mountain, not even shaking a bit. Jiang Fan didn't believe it, so he used all his physique power and spiritual power. To his astonishment, the pill furnace still wouldn't budge. How is this possible? Jiang Fan couldn't believe it. At this moment, his strength was at least equivalent to the second level of core formation. He could probably lift a rock the size of a thatched cottage, right? How could there be something that wouldn't move an inch? Seeing Jiang Fan struggle, Yue Mingzhu's terrible mood finally improved. Even you have such moments. She giggled, what did you not eat? You can't even lift such a small pill furnace? Jiang Fan's face darkened. This pill furnace is strange. Yue Mingzhu laughed more, gloating, if you can't do it. Blame the furnace. If you can't lift this pill furnace, I will take it with me. Although I can't use it. Gifting it to the pavilion master of the heavenly mechanism pavilion should bring me many benefits. Seeing Jiang Fan's increasingly dark expression, Yue Mingzhu felt more than satisfied, laughing as she approached the pill furnace. She grabbed the furnace's ear with both hands and casually lifted, saying, "Small pill furnace, easy as," the words were still in her mouth. Her expression froze first, because the furnace didn't move an inch. How could this be? Even without using spiritual power, her physique at the late stage of core formation should be able to shake a half-human-tall pill furnace. Trying again, it was still the same. The pill furnace seemed to be welded firmly to the ground. Jiang Fan frowned. Even with your physique, you can't move it. Yue Mingzhu's face turned red, nervously saying, Who said that? I haven't used my full strength yet. No choice. She secretly activated her spiritual power, trying one last time. With the strength of her late-stage core formation, this should be enough, right? To her shock, she used all her strength, her face turning red. The pill furnace still didn't move an inch. She was astonished. There's something wrong with this thing. With her strength, even if she couldn't lift a small mountain, she should at least make it shake. How could it not move at all? Seeing that she couldn't move it either, Jiang Fan rubbed his chin and started circling the furnace. Suddenly, a slight uneven feeling came from under his feet. Looking down, he saw something in the ash-covered ground beneath his foot. He brushed aside the ash with his foot. He found that on the ground there were words carved with soul power, left behind by that nascent soul predecessor. Jiang Fan's pupils contracted, and he immediately focused his gaze. Chapter 274. Chapter 274, easily under control. Chapter 274. Chapter 274, easily under control. Yue Mingzhu also noticed Jiang Fan's unusual behavior. She walked over and took a look, discovering that it was still the same as the footprints on the previous wall, an odd script that could easily cause dizziness after reading it. However, this time the characters were larger and she could barely make them out. She read aloud, 9 Dragon Demon Tripod, heavy as Mount Tai, can only be moved by divinity transformation. Divinity transformation. Yue Mingzhu felt a wave of dizziness. Divinity transformation, that's the legendary realm above nascent soul. Every one of them is a celestial figure, a dragon with its head seen but tail hidden. Only such people can shake this pill furnace? No wonder I can't move it. She exhaled slightly. It seemed it wasn't due to her incompetence, but because this pill furnace indeed had significant issues. She wondered what kind of heaven-defying material it was made of to be this heavy. Yue Mingzhu continued reading. Or if a 5-star soul master, one's kindred spirit, happens to come here, they can take it away too. Yue Mingzhu looked puzzled. A soul master can also take it. Could it be that this pill furnace becomes lighter when encountered by a soul master? However, a 5-star soul master is a bit of a joke. Such an existence is only seen in books. Even the master of the heavenly mechanism pavilion is just a 3-star soul master. Jiang Fan seemed thoughtful. Could a soul master take this pill furnace? He stared at the characters on the ground, engraved with soul power. A realization dawned on him. Silently, he released his soul power, enveloping the pill furnace. He attempted to lift it. To his astonishment, with a mere thought, the pill furnace truly wobbled. Unfortunately, because his soul power was far from reaching the level of a 5-star soul master, he couldn't lift it. He could only make it shake. But this confirmed Jiang Fan's conjecture. This pill furnace required soul power to be lifted. Huh! Yue Mingzhu was stunned for a moment and stared at the pill furnace, saying, "Why does it feel like this pill furnace just moved?" Jiang Fan wore a bewildered expression. "Did it?" Yue Mingzhu pulled at the pill furnace, finding it still immobile, making her doubt if it was her illusion. "Strange, why am I having so many illusions today?" That green light was like this. The 9-dragon demon tripod was like this too. It's really spooky. Jiang Fan suppressed his laughter and said, "We can't do anything about this pill furnace. I believe no one can take it away. When we have the chance another day, we'll take it then." He wasn't worried about someone else taking the pill furnace, unless a legendary figure at the divinity transformation level or a 5-star soul master arrived. However, compared to such people descending upon this barren snowfield, it was more likely that Jiang Fan would first break through to a 5-star soul master. At present, his soul power was equivalent to a 4-star soul master. If he could increase his soul power a bit more, he could take the tripod away. Yue Mingzhu nodded. "This darn pill furnace will probably be abandoned here. With such harsh conditions, who could take it away? But, are you just leaving like this? Don't you want these bottles and jars?" Yue Mingzhu's attention returned to the rows of bottles and jars. Her eyes showed a burning desire. Since that nascent soul great power was a soul master, there must be a lot of spirit pills. Perhaps these leftovers are what he considered useless. But for us, they are rare opportunities indeed. Jiang Fan laughed helplessly. No matter how good the spirit pills, their effectiveness has an expiration date. It's been over 100 years here. Even if there were any, they've turned to ash. Moreover, don't you remember, this cave mansion has been occupied before. If there were spirit pills, that person would have used them up. Yue Mingzhu felt a splash of cold water pour over her. Her heart went cold. She unwillingly picked up a jade bottle and removed the stopper. A puff of black smoke nearly hit her face. Just as Jiang Fan said, even if there had been pills inside, they had turned to ashes. Yet she persisted, opening several bottles and jars, only to find the same result. This left her feeling devastated. "I almost fell to my death, and all I got was one explosive jade talisman." No one knew how much hope she had placed on discovering the nascent soul cave mansion. But the outcome was miles apart from her expectations. Jiang Fan felt a bit guilty. It wasn't that the cave mansion lacked treasures, but most of them had gone to Jiang Fan. He comforted her. "Miss Yue, keep a calm heart. Things in this world don't always go as desired. Getting an explosive jade talisman isn't so bad." Yue Mingzhu frowned deeply. He's not wrong. An explosive jade talisman of 9th layer core formation would be a prize fought over by the 9 sects. Getting it meant the trip wasn't in vain. However, her high expectations for the nascent soul cave mansion led to great disappointment. But she suddenly realized, Jiang Fan got nothing. The explosive jade talisman was hers. The earth-level leg technique was not something he could cultivate. The one mystical object he found couldn't be taken away. He was the one who was truly empty-handed. Thinking of this, she felt she owed him. "We agreed you'd take 2 things, but you got nothing in the end." She thought a bit, then removed an amulet from her neck. A thin red cord held a pink Buddha jade amulet. The amulet emitted a mysterious pink mist inside. She was reluctant, but after a moment of thought, she handed it to Jiang Fan. "Take this as my compensation." Feeling the residual warmth from the amulet, Jiang Fan inadvertently glanced at her ample chest. He quickly returned it to her. "I don't want it," Yue Mingzhu said. "Keep it. It's my defensive magical treasure worn for years. As for its level, anyway, don't use it unless it's a life-threatening situation." Seeing Jiang Fan resolutely refusing to accept it, she directly put the amulet around his neck, discontentedly saying, "Are you a man? Why are you acting like a woman?" Jiang Fan awkwardly said, "I'm just worried you'll regret it." Yue Mingzhu chuckled, I never regret it." Jiang Fan nodded. "Remember, you said it yourself." The two checked the cave mansion once more, ensuring no treasure was missed, then left together. They found themselves back at the snow-covered bottom of the cliff. Looking at the ground filled with shocking fragments of iron chains, Yue Mingzhu couldn't help sigh. "It's unbelievable I survived." She suddenly felt that the life-saving amulet she wore for years wasn't so precious anymore. After all, without Jiang Fan's rescue, she would likely be dead by now. "All right, where's your rope?" Yue Mingzhu asked. "I'll help you up." She assumed Jiang Fan must have used a new rope to get down. Jiang Fan paused. "Rope?" Then he understood what she meant and said, "I didn't bring a rope." "What?" Yue Mingzhu's body stiffened, her pretty eyes widening. "You didn't set up a rope." Then how did you get down here? Jiang Fan pointed upward and said, I climbed down, of course. Climbed, this cliff was steep and sheer. Even the best climbers couldn't safely descend it, right? Fine, suppose luck would allow one to climb down, but climbing back up would be impossible, wouldn't it? Yue Mingzhu grew anxious. Are you stupid? How could you not bring a rope? You're driving me crazy. She thought they had escaped to heaven, only to be told there was no rope. Jiang Fan pouted, approached the cliff edge, and asked, Are you coming? Yue Mingzhu grumbled. How do we go? Can you walk on walls? Jiang Fan ignored her. With spiritual power flowing underfoot, he executed solitary wild goose shadow. Hands behind his back, he started walking up the steep cliff. He moved with ease as if walking on flat ground. Yue Mingzhu was stunned. Her eyes gradually widened, pupils contracting, until they shrank to a pinpoint. She uttered in shock, your movement technique is a great success. Chapter 275. Chapter 275. Where did the woman come from? Chapter 275. Chapter 275. Where did the woman come from? Her heart was in turmoil. Medical skills, martial arts, body techniques, comprehension, and now even movement techniques had achieved great success. Was this really something a human could do? Jiang Fan glanced at her. How else do you think I got down here? Aren't you coming over? Yue Mingzhu, snapping out of her daze, ran over, but she suddenly froze again because she realized a problem. Wait, if you are proficient in movement techniques, doesn't that mean you can cultivate that earth-level mid-tier leg technique? Didn't you gain anything from this journey? In terms of value, an earth-level mid-tier leg technique far surpassed a late stage of core formation explosive jade talisman. Jiang Fan nodded his chin. That's right, so what? You never asked if I could use movement techniques. Yue Mingzhu was speechless. That was true, but Jiang Fan was too outrageous, wasn't he? How could there be anything he couldn't do? Thus, when the same opportunity appeared before them, she could only stare while he could seize it. She thought she pitied him and even gave him the defensive magical treasure she couldn't bear to use herself. She immediately felt like an idiot. She immediately stretched out her little hand and bit her lips, saying, Give me back the jade pendant. Jiang Fan calmly replied, But you said you never regretted it. Forgot your own words so soon? Yue Mingzhu clenched her fist and glared angrily at Jiang Fan. She really wanted to hit him, but as the sect master of the Desire sect, she couldn't go back on her word. Never mind, consider it your reward for saving me and taking me up there. Then she leaped and mounted Jiang Fan's back, tightly wrapping her arms around his neck. Her long legs wrapped firmly around his waist. That way she wouldn't fall off. But as a result, her entire body was pressed against Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan could feel the soft, warm pressure on his back, making him uncomfortable. Keep some distance. Seeing Jiang Fan's embarrassed expression, Yue Mingzhu couldn't help finding it amusing. Not only did she not let go, she even wiggled her chest as if accidentally. In a playful tone, she muttered, You've seen and touched, why care about this? Jiang Fan gritted his teeth. He couldn't explain any further. Talking about healing her wounds would only make things worse. So he said nothing more and, carrying her, used his movement techniques to head up the mountain peak. Yue Mingzhu's heart was in her throat. She turned her head to see the bottom of the cliff getting farther and farther away, not daring to breathe. A slip from Jiang Fan and the two of them would plummet down the sheer cliff. Finally, after an hour, they saw the peak. Only then did her heart finally settle. Looking at Jiang Fan's focused profile, she couldn't help but say, You're quite reliable. Since she took charge of the Desire sect, she bore the sect's burdens alone. The last time someone protected her like this was when her master was still alive. But that was a long time ago. Now, after being rescued by this boy who even brought her back from the brink of death, she felt a myriad of emotions. As they approached the peak where they might part ways, she felt a hint of reluctance. She asked, You're not a disciple of the Ninth Sect, are you? Interested in joining my Desire sect? Jiang Fan's head filled with a series of question marks. You're a disciple of the Desire sect, Yue Mingzhu frowned. Do you have an opinion on the Desire sect? Among the Ninth Sect, the Desire sect didn't have a good reputation, because their dual cultivation method was seen by many as a heretical practice. Jiang Fan's views were normal, but Jiang Fan shook his head and said, Not at all. The Desire sect being one of the 9 sect means it's recognized by the other 8 sects and the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, proving it's a legitimate sect. Yue Mingzhu breathed a small sigh of relief and said with some pride, Naturally, our Desire sect's techniques are completely different from those evil arts of stealing yin to replenish yang. They are the most orthodox of paths. After a pause, Yue Mingzhu asked. Then why are you surprised that I'm from the Desire sect? Jiang Fan turned to glance at her in her red dress and no makeup and said, because the Desire sect disciples I know aren't like you. They're either flirty or dressed alluringly. Looking at Yue Mingzhu. Her attire was relatively conservative, and her behavior wasn't as frivolous and indulgent as the other female disciples of the Desire sect. Yue Mingzhu realized and giggled. So that's what you meant. It seems you don't understand the Desire sect well, Jiang Fan said. I'm all ears. Yue Mingzhu hadn't talked so openly with anyone in a long time. Resting her chin on Jiang Fan's shoulder, she relaxed both body and mind. Our Desire sect cultivates the heart. Life seldom goes as we wish. Regret and helplessness are common. Jiang Fan immediately resonated with this. Ever since he could remember, he and his father had wandered without a home, and then he lived under someone else's roof for 10 years. There were very few moments of joy. Yue Mingzhu continued. Cultivating the martial path is a tough and tedious task. So, we need to maintain an optimistic heart to cultivate efficiently. Finding various forms of joy is the best way. This, Jiang Fan had never heard such an explanation before. But he had to admit that a happy mindset indeed made martial cultivation easier. The joy between a man and a woman is the easiest to attain. So many disciples seek pleasure in this way. But some disciples pursue higher forms of joy, like finding true love, gaining fame, and defeating demons. Jiang Fan understood. The joy between a man and a woman was just one of the many joys the Desire sect sought. It was simply the easiest to achieve, so many disciples chose this path. Yue Mingzhu should be among the second type of disciples. I misunderstood the Desire sect. He nodded. Yue Mingzhu's bright eyes blinked. So will you join my Desire sect? With your talent, if you cultivate your heart well, your achievements will be astounding. Jiang Fan replied directly. I already have a sect, but I appreciate the offer. Already has a sect. Yue Mingzhu wasn't surprised. A genius disciple like this would definitely have a sect. Nonetheless, she was curious about what powerful sect had nurtured such a disciple. She gazed at him with a glint in her eyes. Which sect are you from? Could it be one of those outer realm divine sects? Jiang Fan was such a genius, yet no one had heard of him in the nine-sect land. The only possibility was that he came from one of those legendary great sects. Outer realm divine sect. Jiang Fan was puzzled, still pondering where that was, but they had already reached the cliff's edge. He focused, exerted strength in his legs, and leaped up. As his feet touched solid ground, he felt truly at ease. He breathed a long sigh of relief, finally back. As he landed, Xianxia and the others ran over. Junior brother Jiang, Junior brother Jiang, Senior brother Jiang. The three girls were overjoyed, seeing Jiang Fan return safely, their worries lifted. But soon, Qin Kei noticed something odd. She stared in surprise at the girl in the red dress on Jiang Fan's back and asked in astonishment, Junior brother Jiang, who is this? How did he go down and come back with a woman? Xianxia and Chu Xingmeng were also puzzled. Where did this woman come from? Jiang Fan replied, This is a disciple of the Desire sect, Yue Mingzhu. He then looked toward Zai Liushu nearby. Your junior sister, come take her. Junior sister. Zai Liushu and the others were already uneasy. So when Jiang Fan returned, they had no intention of going over. Suddenly hearing him mention a junior sister, they were all stunned. Was there a female disciple named Yue Mingzhu in the Desire sect? Zai Liushu walked over, puzzled. Which junior sister? However, when she saw the delicate and beautiful face of the girl on Jiang Fan's back, she felt as if struck by lightning.